The air is still. The desert stretches endlessly under a pale twilight, and the Great Pyramid of Giza looms ahead, silent, monumental, eternal. At first glance, it is merely stone, stacked in perfect geometry. But step closer, and a subtle hum seems to rise from its core, as if the monument itself is whispering. This is not a place of ordinary history. This is a living testament to a secret older than memory. For centuries, scholars and explorers have tried to decode its mysteries. How was it built with such precision? What was its true purpose? Was it a tomb, as most believe, or something far greater? A vessel of hidden knowledge guarded by an ancient brotherhood? Tonight, we will step beyond stone and dust. Tonight, we listen for the whisper beneath the stones. Long before the age of modern Egyptology, before the tombs were cataloged and the hieroglyphs translated, the Great Pyramid stood as an enigma. It was part of a grand design written in stone, a message encoded for those who knew how to read it. But the key to this knowledge was never public. It was the domain of a select few, an order bound by oath, secrecy, and devotion. The pharaohs themselves were more than kings. They were initiates, guardians of a tradition that blended astronomy, ritual, and an understanding of the human soul. Beneath their crowns lay not just crowns of gold, but crowns of knowledge, mysteries that the ages have tried to bury. And the pyramids were their sanctuaries, built not merely as monuments, but as repositories of a hidden legacy. Our journey begins in that shadowed threshold. Imagine walking toward the Great Pyramid at night, the stones cold beneath your fingers. Imagine the air inside, still and heavy with centuries of silence. Every corridor, every chamber, every symbol carved into the stone is part of code. And that code points to something extraordinary, something lost, something that could rewrite what we know of human history. Yet what if we have been looking in the wrong way all along? Modern archaeology teaches us to measure and catalog. But the true heart of the mystery lies not in measurement, but in interpretation. And interpretation requires stepping beyond the light of accepted knowledge, into the shadows where the hidden brotherhood once walked. There are whispers scattered across time. Ancient Greek historians wrote of priests in Egypt who possessed extraordinary knowledge. Their writings speak of an order that preserved wisdom far older than recorded history. Plato hinted at secrets hidden in stone. Others spoke of a time when knowledge was guarded as fiercely as gold, passed down in silence. For centuries, these whispers were dismissed as myth. But now, cracks are appearing in the conventional story. New discoveries suggest that beneath the veneer of archaeology lies a much deeper truth. The pyramids were not built randomly, nor merely as tombs. Their proportions, their alignments, their hidden chambers, all speak of a deliberate, arcane purpose. A purpose that only a brotherhood sworn to secrecy could have preserved. Tonight's story is not merely about stones and hieroglyphs. It is about a hidden lineage, about guardianship, about the possibility that the ancient world was far more sophisticated than we have been taught, and about a secret so profound that it was deliberately erased from history. As we stand at the threshold of this journey, we must ask ourselves, what if the greatest story of human history is not written in books, but carved in stone? What if the pyramids themselves are the final testament of an order that once knew something extraordinary, something worth guarding until the end of time? The whisper beneath the stones calls us forward. Step with us into the shadows. Step with us into the forgotten. And listen carefully, because what we are about to uncover may change the way we see history forever. Long before the first stone was laid at Giza, before the sands swallowed entire cities, there was the pharaoh the living embodiment of a divine order. To the ancient Egyptians, the pharaoh was not merely a ruler. He was the bridge between the earthly and the eternal. His power was woven with ritual, cosmic alignment, and an understanding of mysteries few could comprehend. But behind every crown lay a shadow, a secret lineage that was whispered only in sacred chambers. The pharaohs were more than monarchs. They were priests, astronomers, architects, and guardians. They carried a dual role, to lead the people and to protect knowledge. In their reign lay not just political authority, but a sacred trust, a duty to preserve a deeper truth. This truth was not written in stone for the masses. It was guarded, hidden, passed in silence from one ruler to the next. Egyptian history reveals grand monuments and intricate hieroglyphs, but these are only fragments of a larger story. The pharaoh's world was steeped in symbolism, a language of power designed to shield something far greater. Every crown, every scepter, every ritual was layered with meaning. Beneath the public display of divine kingship, there was a hidden order, a brotherhood sworn to maintain the balance between human ambition and cosmic truth. We begin to see this shadowy world in the earliest dynasties. Pharaohs such as Djoser and Sneferu built more than tombs. They built gateways, portals to knowledge, to eternity. The step pyramid of Djoser was more than an architectural wonder. It was a symbolic stairway, a coded expression of sacred geometry. Sneferu's bent pyramid concealed angles and alignments that still baffle modern science. These were not accidents. They were deliberate acts by those who understood a language older than hieroglyphs. And this knowledge was not freely shared. Only the pharaoh and his closest initiates, the priests of the Brotherhood, could read it. The pharaoh's initiation was a ceremony of secrecy. Behind the veil of gold and ceremony lay trials designed to transform the ruler into something more than mortal, a keeper of the ancient way. These rites were passed down through generations, hidden behind layers of ritual, legend, and silence. What was the nature of this secret knowledge? Was it a cosmic map, a record of mankind's true origins, or a set of teachings that connected the human mind to the mysteries of the universe? The answer remains elusive, yet clues survive, embedded in the stone, hidden in the alignment of monuments, and recorded in fragments of text too dangerous to preserve. The shadows of the pharaohs extended far beyond their reign. They shaped the way Egypt saw itself. Pharaohs ruled not merely as kings of a land, but as stewards of a divine inheritance. Every decree, every war, every construction was bound to a purpose greater than political power. This was stewardship of a truth so powerful that it could not be entrusted to the many. It could only live within the Brotherhood. And yet, this shadow was not without its dangers. Power entwined with secrecy breeds both devotion and betrayal. Pharaohs were challenged, not only by foreign enemies, but by forces within their own court. Rivalries within the Brotherhood could be deadly. The fate of a kingdom could hinge on whispers in the dark, on conspiracies written in silence. History remembers the pharaohs as gods or tyrants, but behind the public story lies a far more intimate battle, one fought in shadows, for control of something eternal. This hidden dimension changes everything. If the pharaohs were guardians of a secret order, then the monuments they left behind were not simply symbols of power, but parts of a greater legacy. Each pyramid, each temple, each hidden chamber was a fragment of a much larger design, a puzzle pointing to a knowledge beyond the reach of ordinary history. To understand the pharaohs is to step into their shadow. It is to realize that their world was built not only on sand and stone, but on silence and secrecy. They ruled not only with armies and laws, but with rites and mysteries. They carried the burden of guardianship, knowing that one day the secret might fade forever. And perhaps it almost did. For centuries, the Brotherhood's story was erased. Records were destroyed. Knowledge was buried. Yet traces remain, faint whispers across time. And in those whispers lies a question we cannot ignore. What was the truth the Pharaohs guarded so fiercely? The shadow of the Pharaohs stretches across millennia, leaving behind monuments that still breathe mystery. Their legacy is not found in textbooks, but in the silent corridors of the pyramids, in the precise angles of stone, and in the ancient language of symbolism. The shadow calls to us, urging us to look beyond what we see, to seek the knowledge hidden in plain sight. As we move deeper into this journey, we begin to understand that the pharaohs and their shadows are not relics of the past. They are the first chapter in a story that continues to echo into the present, a story of guardianship, secrecy, and a hidden brotherhood that may still survive today. The next step in our journey will take us closer to the heart of their work, to see not only what they built, but why they built it, to follow the path that leads from stone to secret, from the pharaoh's crown to the whisper beneath the pyramids. The desert wind shifts as we stand before the Great Pyramid. Its silhouette cuts sharply against the horizon, a shape so perfect it defies nature. To call it a tomb feels insufficient. This is something more, a deliberate creation of geometry, harmony, and mystery. It is a work of eternity. But how was it built? And why? For centuries, the construction of the pyramids has baffled historians, engineers, and dreamers alike. The precision of the stonework, the alignment with the stars, the sheer scale of the undertaking, it is not merely a feat of engineering. It is a statement. It says something about the vision of those who built it, a vision rooted in a knowledge lost to us now. The prevailing theories speak of tens of thousands of workers, ramps, and raw human labor. But these explanations do not satisfy the question of purpose. Why such extraordinary precision? Why such care in alignment with the heavens? The more we study the pyramids, the more they seem less like tombs and more like coded messages carved in stone. Messages that only the initiated could decipher. The Great Pyramid itself is aligned with remarkable accuracy to true north. Its dimensions encode mathematical constants that would not be formally discovered for thousands of years. The builders understood not only the art of stone, but the language of the cosmos. Every angle, every chamber, every hidden corridor was a deliberate choice. This was architecture designed to endure not just physically, but in meaning, to preserve something eternal. The question then emerges, what was it they wanted to preserve? Was it a map? A record of human origins? Or something far more esoteric? Knowledge of a cosmic order? Some researchers suggest that the pyramid was a kind of machine, a device designed to connect Earth to the heavens. Others see it as a tomb, but a tomb with layers of encoded wisdom hidden within its structure. The deeper truth may be locked in the idea that these monuments were not created in isolation. They were part of a grander vision, guided by an order whose knowledge extended far beyond construction techniques. This was an order that understood the language of stone, the symbolism of geometry, and the secrets of alignment. In other words, a brotherhood. Evidence points to careful planning spanning generations. The construction of the Great Pyramid was not a single act, but the culmination of centuries of knowledge. Earlier structures, such as the Step Pyramid of Djoser, were experiments in form, in engineering, in symbolism. Sneferu's bent pyramid carried lessons learned and refined. Each step forward was deliberate, a refinement of a sacred design language passed down in secrecy. This is where the idea of a hidden brotherhood gains traction. The complexity of these monuments suggests a tradition beyond ordinary architectural practice. It suggests a lineage of knowledge, a body of wisdom preserved and handed down through generations. This was not merely construction. It was a ritual in stone, a building of eternity. Inside the pyramid, there are chambers that defy conventional explanation. The so-called Queen's Chamber, the Grand Gallery, and the mysterious air shafts all suggest a deeper purpose. These spaces are not random. They are aligned, positioned, and designed with a knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and symbolism. Could these be deliberate markers? Keys to a greater mystery? The idea is tantalizing. The very stones themselves hold a secret language. Ancient quarry marks, inscriptions now hidden beneath centuries of dust, and the geometric precision of the outer casing all speak of intention. The builders encoded meaning into every stone, knowing that centuries later, we would still puzzle over their choices. They built not just for themselves, but for an audience beyond time. But the brotherhood that guided this work would not leave a record. Their secret was protected by silence. Knowledge was guarded as the most precious treasure. To the outside world, the pyramids were simply monuments to the gods. But to the initiates, they were a living scripture, a message in stone that spoke of eternity, order, and hidden purpose. It is here that the mystery deepens. We are not merely looking at a feat of engineering. We are looking at an act of devotion, a construction that blends faith, science, and secrecy. The pyramid becomes more than a monument. It becomes a statement, an eternal testament to a truth kept by a hidden order. This vision of building eternity leads us into the heart of the Brotherhood's purpose. It suggests that the pyramids were not the end of a journey, but a vessel, a container for knowledge that could transcend generations. They were a language written in stone, awaiting those who could understand it. And so, we arrive at the next step in this story. To understand the pyramids is to step beyond stone and into the mind of their builders. It is to glimpse the brotherhood that guided them, guardians of a truth too precious to be written plainly, too dangerous to be revealed. The path ahead will take us deeper into this hidden world. We will discover not just how the pyramids were built, but why. We will uncover the origins of the Brotherhood and begin to see how their secrets shaped not only ancient Egypt, but perhaps the course of human history itself. History remembers the pyramids as wonders of human achievement, but beneath the grandeur lies a question that haunts scholars and dreamers alike. Who guided their creation? There are hints scattered through time, whispers in the margins of history, pointing to something extraordinary, a brotherhood, an order bound by oath, secrecy, and a shared mission, to guard the deepest truths of the ancient world. This brotherhood was not a legend born from myth. Its existence is glimpsed in fragments, in hieroglyphs, in hidden chambers, in the precise alignment of monuments. These fragments suggest a lineage, a council of initiates who carried knowledge that was far more than architectural skill. They carried a vision, a responsibility, and a secret that shaped the very foundations of Egyptian civilization. To understand this brotherhood is to see Egypt differently. The pharaohs were their outward faces, the public rulers. But behind the throne, there was a council, an inner circle of priests, scribes, and architects who understood the sacred geometry, the celestial alignments, and the coded language within stone. They were not merely builders. They were guardians of a tradition older than Egypt itself. The Brotherhood's origins are lost to time, hidden before even the pharaohs of the Old Kingdom rose to power. Some scholars suggest they existed before recorded history, perhaps as custodians of knowledge brought from forgotten civilizations. Others see them as a secret priesthood, formed in the shadow of creation myths, tasked with preserving a cosmic heritage. Whatever their origin, the traces they left are unmistakable. The Great Pyramid is perhaps their greatest statement. Its proportions, alignments, and hidden spaces speak of an intention beyond any mortal ambition. It was more than a tomb. It was a monument to an idea. And the Brotherhood was its architect in both stone and spirit. Their purpose was not simply to build, but to encode, to create a vessel that could survive the erosion of time and carry a message to the future. Their work was protected by silence. The Brotherhood operated in secrecy, passing knowledge from one generation to the next without written record. Initiates swore oaths, bound by sacred vows. They became keepers of knowledge so powerful it could not risk exposure. The secrets were woven into ritual, hidden in hieroglyphs, and embedded in stone. Every temple, every pyramid, every hidden chamber became part of their living archive. The Brotherhood's influence reached far beyond architecture. They shaped the Pharaohs' rites, the religious calendar, and even the way history was recorded. Their presence is whispered in the inscriptions of temples and tombs. It is visible in the careful preservation of certain myths and in the erasure of others. Their power was not open and grand, but concealed, flowing quietly behind the drama of kings and gods. Evidence of their existence comes not only from archaeology, but from the traditions they inspired. Later Greek philosophers spoke of secret orders in Egypt, a knowledge passed down through hidden channels. Plato hinted at a truth guarded by priests. Herodotus wrote of an ancient wisdom that was preserved beyond the reach of ordinary men. These fragments point to the possibility that the Brotherhood was more than a historical curiosity. They were the custodians of an enduring legacy. But secrecy comes with danger. The Brotherhood was a hidden kingdom within a kingdom, and that power bred conflict. Rivalries, betrayals, and struggles for control were woven into their history. To guard a secret is to invite envy and ambition. The Brotherhood survived through concealment, but at times, its own members threatened its existence. This was not merely a battle for knowledge, but a battle for the soul of Egypt itself. The Brotherhood's work extended beyond the borders of Egypt. Some researchers suggest their influence reached into Greece, Rome, and even further, shaping the foundations of later mystery traditions. Their teachings may have traveled in silence, disguised as myth and ritual, leaving traces in cultures across the ancient world. The Brotherhood, if it existed as described, was not a localized sect. It was the keeper of a timeless tradition. Their legacy is encoded in the very structure of the pyramids. The hidden chambers, the precision of the design, the symbolism carved into stone, all suggest a deliberate act of preservation. This was not architecture for glory. It was architecture for eternity. Each pyramid was a sealed message, waiting for those who could understand its language. And only the Brotherhood held the key. To this day, the Brotherhood remains elusive. There is no formal record, no scroll to prove their existence. What remains are fragments, the whispers of stone, the alignment of the stars, the hidden chambers that defy explanation. The Brotherhood exists, for now, in shadow. But those shadows point to something remarkable. The possibility that the pyramids were not built for kings, but for knowledge itself. And so, as we stand before the stone face of the Great Pyramid, we must ask, what was the Brotherhood guarding? Was it simply a tomb, a record, a ritual? Or was it something far greater, a secret that could change the way we understand our history and perhaps ourselves? The Brotherhood emerges from history not as a single moment, but as a living presence woven into the monuments they built. They did not simply construct pyramids. They created a legacy of silence. And that silence may be the most powerful clue of all. Our next step will take us deeper into this idea, into the symbolism hidden in stone and the code the Brotherhood left behind. From the shadow of the Pharaohs to the heart of eternity, we will follow the path they built, stone by stone. Step closer to the Great Pyramid and look beyond the sheer magnitude of stone. There is a language hidden within the structure, a language not of words, but of geometry, proportion, and symbol. These stones speak. They whisper secrets of an order that saw architecture not merely as construction, but as communication, a message cast in the eternal language of stone. From the moment we first deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphs, we glimpsed a world rich with symbolism. Every glyph was deliberate, every carving purposeful. But the pyramids took this symbolism further. They embedded it in their very structure. The shapes, alignments, and hidden chambers were themselves hieroglyphs written in stone. They were a code, a map, a language that only those initiated could read. The ancient Egyptians understood that architecture could be more than shelter or monument. It could be a vessel of meaning, a symbol of cosmic order. The pyramids were aligned with the stars, their proportions tuned to celestial harmony. Scholars have noted that the Great Pyramid aligns precisely with the cardinal points and contains dimensions that reflect mathematical constants, such as pi and the golden ratio. These are not accidents. They were deliberate inscriptions of knowledge in stone. But what was this knowledge? The Brotherhood that guided the building of the pyramids understood that symbols could hold power. They used geometry as both tool and language, embedding within the stone the blueprint of a deeper understanding. This was not only engineering, it was an act of ritual. The pyramid itself became a living symbol, a gate to something beyond. Symbols in stone are not merely static. They're a dialogue between builder and observer. To the initiate, the pyramid was a map of the cosmos, a representation of the path between earth and the divine. To the uninitiated, it was a marvel of craftsmanship, a tomb, or a monument. The hidden meaning was preserved in plain sight, waiting for the right mind to decode it. Hieroglyphs carved in nearby temples hint at this deeper purpose. They speak of sacred geometry and cosmic order, of cycles that repeat across time. They suggest that the pyramid was built not only to endure, but to align humanity with a greater truth. These symbols were part of a language known to the Brotherhood, a language that could not be written in ordinary words. Inside the pyramid, symbolism grows more profound. The king's chamber, the grand gallery, and the shafts that pierce the stone all suggest deliberate alignment and meaning. The very placement of these chambers echoes a cosmological design, pointing towards celestial events and cosmic cycles. Could these have been the Brotherhood's way of encoding a truth too powerful to be spoken aloud? The symbolism extended beyond the pyramid itself. Surrounding monuments, temples, and sphinxes formed a greater symbolic landscape. They were part of a grand narrative written across the plateau, a story of order, guardianship, and the path to eternity. This was not the work of architects alone. It was the creation of an order that saw the entire landscape as a sacred text. Some researchers believe these symbols were also a warning. Hidden in geometry and proportion were instructions, a cautionary message about knowledge, power, and the responsibility of those who inherit it. The Brotherhood understood that knowledge could not be given freely without risk. It had to be preserved in secrecy disguised as ritual in stone, until the right moment of revelation. Symbols in stone are the Brotherhood's fingerprint. They're the proof of a silent lineage, a hidden order that used architecture as both sanctuary and scripture. To decipher these symbols is to begin to understand their purpose. It is to walk in the footsteps of those who built eternity, guided by a vision beyond our reach. But symbolism is fragile. Over millennia, the true meaning of these inscriptions has been obscured by time, erosion, and the loss of context. Modern interpretations vary wildly, from mathematical marvels to mystical speculation. Yet beneath all interpretations remains a compelling truth. The pyramids were not random structures. They were deliberate acts of preservation. Each stone was chosen, placed, and carved with purpose, embedding a language that still speaks across the ages. This language of stone leads us deeper into the mystery. The Brotherhood did not merely build monuments. They created a living archive, a message for the future concealed within the very foundations of the world's greatest marvel. To understand these symbols is to begin to unlock their secret, a key the Brotherhood guarded above all else. As we move forward in our journey, we begin to see that the pyramids were not the work of stone alone. They were the expression of a hidden order, a brotherhood that understood the power of symbol and silence. They carved not just monuments, but a path that we now must follow if we wish to glimpse the truth they protected. Our next step will take us deeper still, into the hidden chambers of the Brotherhood's work, into the scrolls and inscriptions that hint at a library of knowledge erased by time. We will uncover the whispers that remain in the margins of history, the forbidden scrolls that may hold the greatest revelation of all. Beneath the grandeur of stone and the whispers of symbol, there lies another layer of mystery, a record of knowledge that was deliberately hidden. The Brotherhood did not only build monuments. They guarded writings, scrolls, and teachings so dangerous, so powerful, that they were erased from history. These are the forbidden scrolls, fragments of a knowledge that could alter the way humanity sees itself. We know of these scrolls only through echoes, references in ancient texts, lost library catalogs, and the fragments that survived deliberate destruction. The Great Library of Alexandria was said to have held more than just books. It was a vault for the world's hidden knowledge, much of it stolen, copied, or destroyed. Some scholars suggest that its loss was no accident. It was part of a larger pattern, the systematic erasure of a secret too dangerous for the masses. The scrolls of the Brotherhood were not ordinary records. They were coded manuscripts, written in symbolic language designed to be read only by initiates. They contained astronomy, mathematics, rituals, and perhaps something far greater, knowledge of the nature of reality itself. This was not academic knowledge. It was sacred knowledge, preserved in secrecy to prevent its misuse. Ancient Egyptian texts hint at such repositories of knowledge. The Book of Thoth, for instance, is described in legend as a lost scripture containing the secrets of the gods. To the Egyptians, it was more than a book. It was a key, a manual of cosmic truth. Plato and other Greek philosophers allude to similar sources of ancient wisdom, often attributing them to Egyptian priests. Could these be references to the Brotherhood's scrolls? The Brotherhood's guardianship extended to protecting these texts. They became the keepers of memory, ensuring that certain knowledge survived while others were deliberately hidden. This secrecy was enforced through ritual and oath, ensuring that the scrolls were passed down only to those deemed worthy. It was not merely preservation, it was protection. Yet secrecy comes with peril. Over centuries, scrolls were lost to fire, war, and conquest. Libraries fell, and with them, entire chapters of human knowledge disappeared. The loss of Alexandria is perhaps the most famous example, but history is scattered with similar erasures. The Brotherhood scrolls may have survived in fragments, hidden away in secret chambers, concealed within temples, or passed down orally through initiation rites. These fragments are tantalizing. They suggest knowledge of astronomy far ahead of its time, mathematics that transcends our modern understanding, and philosophy that speaks of humanity's place in the cosmos. Some inscriptions hint at a warning, a truth too dangerous to reveal until humanity was ready. The scrolls were not simply texts. They were living guardians of an ancient trust. The danger of such knowledge explains the Brotherhood's secrecy. They understood that truth can be a double-edged sword. Knowledge without wisdom can lead to ruin. The scrolls were kept hidden not only to preserve them, but to protect the world from their power. This is why the Brotherhood became an order of silence, an unseen force shaping history from the shadows. What became of these scrolls? We may never know for certain. Some believe they were hidden within the pyramids themselves, stored in chambers never found. Others suggest they were carried away by initiates to distant lands, passed down through other secret societies, disguised as myth or ritual. The truth may be lost to time, but the possibility of their existence remains a thread that pulls us deeper into the mystery. This brings us to a profound question. What did the Brotherhood value so highly that they would risk their lives to protect it? Was it a key to the universe, a map of hidden worlds, or the knowledge of humanity's true origins? The answer may lie not in a single scroll, but in the network of symbols, monuments, and traditions they left behind. The Forbidden Scrolls are the heart of the Brotherhood's legacy. They are the silent proof of a tradition that valued knowledge above all else. They were the vessels of a truth too fragile to survive without concealment. And they remind us that the history we know is not the whole history, that much has been deliberately hidden. Our journey now leads us deeper still into the heart of initiation and ritual. For to understand the Brotherhood is to understand how they passed their knowledge forward, not in open record, but through rites that bound their secrets in silence. We will step inside the Pharaoh's chamber and witness the initiation that transformed kings into keepers of an eternal order. The Forbidden Scrolls call to us not just as relics of the past, but as keys to the future. They are whispers of a knowledge erased, waiting for those who dare to follow the path into the hidden chambers of history. The crown of Egypt was not merely a symbol of power, it was the sign of initiation. For the pharaoh, ascending the throne was not only a political act, but a passage into a hidden order. This initiation transformed a king into something greater, the guardian of an ancient truth. The ceremony was shrouded in secrecy, known only to a chosen few, and its meaning lost to the passing of millennia. The initiation of a pharaoh was no ordinary coronation. It was a ritual of transformation. The king was stripped of his mortal identity and reborn as the living embodiment of Ma'at, truth, balance, and cosmic order. This process was guided by the Brotherhood, whose presence remained invisible to the public eye. They oversaw the rites, ensuring the king's passage was complete. Evidence of this initiation appears in the symbolic art and texts of ancient Egypt. The rituals speak of death and rebirth, of a journey into hidden chambers where the king would face trials that tested his spirit. Some scholars compare these rites to mystery traditions in other cultures, rites designed to awaken hidden knowledge. For the pharaoh, initiation was not just about ruling the kingdom. It was about receiving the responsibility of guarding a cosmic legacy. The ceremony itself was a blend of symbolism and sacred architecture. It took place within temples and hidden chambers aligned with celestial patterns. The pharaoh would pass through corridors lit by flickering torchlight, moving deeper into the heart of the temple. Each step was a test, each chamber a symbol of an inner truth. The ritual transformed stone into scripture and the crown into a key to the Brotherhood's hidden world. The Brotherhood did not leave records of these ceremonies. Their secrecy was absolute. What we know comes from fragments, inscriptions, temple reliefs, and scattered references in later texts. These fragments speak of an order that valued transformation as much as knowledge. They believed that to inherit the truth of the pyramids required a change of being. The initiate had to shed the self to become a vessel of eternal knowledge. This initiation was not an isolated event. It connected the pharaoh to a lineage stretching far beyond Egypt's recorded history. The rites reflected a continuity of knowledge preserved through the Brotherhood, a wisdom older than dynasties, older than stone. The pharaoh's crown was not a prize won by birthright alone. It was a mantle passed down through initiation. The symbolism of the rite reveals a deeper truth. The pharaoh was not simply a ruler of men, but a keeper of cosmic harmony. His role was to align the kingdom with the order of the universe. The pyramid itself became a temple of initiation, a structure designed to prepare the king for this sacred duty. Every corridor, chamber, and shaft was part of the path. Every stone was a step in the ceremony of becoming. The Brotherhood's power lay in their ability to guide this transformation. They were the custodians of a tradition that valued secrecy as a form of preservation. The pharaoh's initiation was their gift and their responsibility. It was a rite that bound the king to the Brotherhood's mission, linking the ruler's fate to the preservation of the knowledge they guarded. The implications of this initiation are profound. If the pharaoh's power came from such a transformation, then the pyramids themselves were not just tombs or monuments. They were sanctuaries. They were initiatory spaces designed to encode a ritual that transcended death. The Brotherhood embedded the path to initiation within the stone, preserving their right for eternity. This hidden ceremony changes the way we see the pharaohs. They were not only kings, but initiated guardians. Their crowns were not symbols of conquest, but of trust. They were the living link between the people and a hidden order. The pharaoh's role was as much spiritual as political, a role written into stone, sealed in secrecy, and guarded by the Brotherhood. The initiation also reveals the stakes of secrecy. The Brotherhood's survival depended on their ability to guard these rites. They ensured that knowledge was passed only to those prepared to bear its weight. Initiation was a threshold, a passage that could not be crossed without transformation. This was the Brotherhood's covenant, and the pharaoh was the living proof of it. Yet the initiation was not without danger. Those who sought the crown could be destroyed in the attempt. Rival factions, jealous priests, and political rivals threatened both the king and the Brotherhood. The ceremony was both a passage and a test, a crucible that proved worthiness. Those who failed never ascended. Those who succeeded became part of a hidden tradition that shaped the course of history. As we move deeper into the story of the Brotherhood, we begin to see the significance of this initiation. It was not merely a rite of passage for a king. It was the living heart of an order, a ceremony that bound ruler to secret. The pharaoh became not only sovereign of Egypt, but the living guardian of a hidden legacy. Our next step will take us beyond initiation and into the work of the Brotherhood itself, into the sacred knowledge they encoded, the hidden libraries they protected, and the truths they concealed. This journey will reveal how the Brotherhood shaped not only the monuments of Egypt, but the very story of human history. The Brotherhood was more than a secret society. They were the guardians of knowledge, entrusted with a mission older than the pyramids themselves. Their role was not merely to protect the monuments, but to preserve the understanding those monuments contained. This knowledge was a living inheritance, passed through generations in silence and shadow. To the outside world, Egypt was a kingdom of kings and gods. But behind the veil of ceremony and worship, there was another reality, a network of guardians bound by oath. They preserved knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, sacred geometry, and rituals that connected humanity to the cosmos. This was knowledge deemed too powerful to be left in the hands of the many. It was entrusted only to the initiated. The Guardians' mission began in secrecy. They operated behind the walls of temples, in hidden chambers beneath pyramids, and within the silent corridors of sacred complexes. Their libraries were not open to scholars or priests. They were sanctuaries of guarded truth. The scrolls they protected contained teachings of profound depth, knowledge that could alter the very foundation of human understanding. Much of what they preserved was written in a symbolic language. Geometry, proportion, and alignment became their texts. The pyramids themselves were part of this archive, stone by stone, encoding lessons for those who could interpret them. This was not architecture alone. It was a living scripture. Every block, every passageway, was a sentence in an eternal story. The guardians were also the keepers of ritual. They ensured that the rites of initiation, such as those of the Pharaoh, were preserved intact. These ceremonies were not mere tradition. They were the living transmission of the Brotherhood's purpose. Through ritual, they ensured that the knowledge remained alive, carried forward through the hands of those who could bear it. The Brotherhood's guardianship extended far beyond the physical. They preserved not only records, but a way of seeing the world. To them, knowledge was not inert, it was sacred. It was a map of existence, a guide to harmony, and a key to understanding the order of the universe. This was their gift to the world, a truth they believed must be protected at all costs. Their guardianship was a burden as much as a duty. To preserve knowledge in secrecy was to walk a lonely path. The Brotherhood existed in shadow, their work invisible to the world. They knew that revelation could destroy what they guarded, yet concealment carried its own dangers. Knowledge kept hidden risks being forgotten. The Brotherhood's greatest challenge was to preserve without losing, to pass forward without revealing too soon. Evidence of their work can be traced in the architecture of Egypt. Temples and pyramids were not isolated creations. They formed a vast network of sacred sites, each carrying a piece of the Brotherhood's knowledge. The alignment of these sites with celestial bodies suggests a deliberate plan, a map across the land pointing to truths concealed in stone. The Guardians were not simply scholars. They were initiates of a deeper mystery. Their role was to interpret, to preserve, and to guide. They understood that knowledge without wisdom could become dangerous. Their secrecy was a safeguard, a way to protect humanity from truths it might not yet be ready to bear. But secrecy also attracted peril. The Brotherhood faced threats from within and without. Rival factions, foreign invaders, and even internal dissent challenged their work. Knowledge was power, and power is never safe. The Guardians became warriors of secrecy, defending not with armies, but with silence, ritual, and stone. This is why the Brotherhood's work was never written plainly. Their legacy survives in hidden chambers, encoded inscriptions, and the alignment of monuments that speak in the language of the cosmos. They created a living archive designed to survive time and erasure. Their knowledge was embedded not in libraries alone, but in the landscape itself. The concept of guardianship reshapes our understanding of the Brotherhood. They were not seekers of knowledge for personal gain, but stewards of a tradition they believed transcended time. Their mission was not to rule, but to preserve, to ensure that the truth, when revealed, would survive. To be a guardian was to accept a vow of silence. It was to carry a truth without revealing it. It was to know that the work might never be complete, and yet continue the effort for generations. The Brotherhood lived in the service of that vow. Their monuments were their testament, their hidden chambers their sacred trust. The guardians of knowledge remind us that history is not always written openly. Some of the most profound truths are hidden, preserved in silence and secrecy. The Brotherhood's work was not only to build, it was to safeguard a legacy that could one day illuminate the human story. As we journey deeper into the mystery, we begin to see that guardianship was not simply a role, it was a covenant. It bound the Brotherhood to a truth beyond kings and kingdoms, beyond time itself. And it leads us to the next step in our journey, to understand what the Brotherhood was guarding so fiercely and why they chose to keep it hidden from the world. The path ahead will lead us into the heart of their knowledge, into the secret chambers where the truth of the pyramids lies waiting to be found. Beneath the great surface of the pyramid lies a hidden world, corridors carved in silence, chambers sealed for eternity, spaces untouched by the hands of time. These are the secret chambers, the heart of the mystery, places where stone becomes sanctuary and silence becomes scripture. They are the Brotherhood's most deliberate creation, a physical manifestation of the knowledge they guarded. The known chambers of the Great Pyramid, the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber, the Grand Gallery, already speak of precision and mystery. Yet hints of other, hidden chambers persist. Scans of the pyramid reveal anomalies, voids not explained by the conventional layout. Could these be deliberate sanctuaries for the Brotherhood's knowledge? Hidden spaces designed not for the living, but for eternity? The idea is not far-fetched. In ancient architecture, secrecy was part of sacred design. The Egyptians knew that some truths could not be exposed. Hidden chambers offered a way to preserve knowledge beyond the reach of conquest, decay, and the curiosity of the uninitiated. They were vaults of meaning, sealed by design, and guarded by generations of initiates. The very design of these chambers suggests a purpose beyond burial. Their alignment, their dimensions, their isolation, all speak of ritual and secrecy. Some scholars propose that these chambers were constructed to protect scrolls, objects, or knowledge too powerful to leave exposed. Others believe they were symbolic spaces, initiatory sanctuaries designed to align the soul with cosmic order. If the chambers were built to conceal knowledge, their contents would be priceless. They might hold fragments of the forbidden scrolls, relics of ancient wisdom, or tools for understanding the architecture of the cosmos. To open such a chamber would be to step into the heart of the Brotherhood's covenant. It would be to cross a threshold guarded for centuries. The secrecy of these chambers was part of the Brotherhood's code. They understood that knowledge has power, and power demands protection. These hidden spaces became sanctuaries for their trust, places where knowledge could be preserved without risk of misuse. They were the physical embodiment of the Brotherhood's vow of silence. Evidence of secret chambers is not only in modern scans, but in the ancient record. Inscriptions, myths, and traditions speak of hidden sanctuaries within sacred monuments. The pyramid texts themselves hint at inner worlds beyond the visible. These texts speak of chambers of resurrection and illumination, accessible only to the worthy. Could these be references to the Brotherhood's sanctuaries? The search for these chambers has captivated explorers and scientists alike. Modern technology has revealed anomalies, but the exact purpose and content of these voids remain unknown. Each discovery deepens the mystery, suggesting that the pyramid is not a completed structure, but a living monument still guarding its secrets. The symbolism of hidden chambers speaks to a deeper truth. They are a metaphor for the hidden knowledge itself, a truth buried within the heart of human history, concealed until the moment is right for its revelation. The Brotherhood designed these spaces not only to preserve knowledge, but to conceal it in plain sight, hidden beneath the layers of stone and history. The idea of hidden chambers changes how we perceive the pyramids. They are not simply monuments to kings or gods. They are vaults of secrets, deliberate acts of preservation built by a brotherhood that understood the value of silence. The pyramid becomes not just a tomb, but a sacred library, encoded in stone, waiting for those who know how to read it. The chambers also suggest a relationship between knowledge and initiation. To enter such a chamber would be to pass a threshold, to become part of the Brotherhood itself. This aligns with the idea that the pyramids were not just tombs, but initiatory spaces built to transform the seeker, to prepare them for the knowledge they were to inherit. This is why the search for these chambers carries such weight. It is not merely archaeology. It is a quest for understanding the covenant of the Brotherhood. It is a search for the threshold they built, the place where knowledge, silence, and eternity converge. The secret chambers, if they exist as imagined, are more than physical spaces. They are the embodiment of the Brotherhood's mission, to guard knowledge for eternity. They are silent witnesses to a vow that has endured for millennia, a vow written in stone and protected by secrecy. As we step forward, we must ask, what lies within these hidden sanctuaries? Is it a library of forbidden knowledge, a symbol of cosmic truth, or something far more profound? The path ahead will take us deeper into the mysteries the Brotherhood sought to protect, leading us toward revelations that could change our understanding of history itself. Our next section will take us inside this mystery, into the hidden language carved in stone, and into the code the Brotherhood embedded within the pyramid itself. This is where architecture becomes scripture, and stone becomes the voice of eternity. The pyramids speak, not in words written on papyrus, nor in spoken tongue, but in a language older than language itself, a language written in stone, proportion, alignment, and silence. This is the language of the pyramid, the hidden code, the Brotherhood embedded for those who could read it. From the moment we first stepped before the Great Pyramid, scholars sensed that there was more than stone and mortar at work. The proportions, alignments, and hidden geometry seemed deliberate, as though the entire structure was a manuscript, a message in stone written for eternity. The Brotherhood knew this, and they designed the pyramid as their greatest statement. The language of the pyramid is built from geometry. The angles of its sides, the ratios between its dimensions, and the alignments with celestial bodies form a complex code. Scholars have pointed to the golden ratio and pi embedded within the Great Pyramid's design. These are not mere coincidences. They are deliberate inscriptions, a form of symbolic writing that speaks of cosmic order and harmony. But geometry is only part of the language. Alignment plays a deeper role. The Great Pyramid is aligned precisely with the cardinal points, and its shafts point toward specific stars and constellations. This was not a matter of convenience. It was intentional, a statement written in the language of the heavens. The Brotherhood encoded their knowledge of astronomy into the very orientation of structure. The language also extends into the hidden chambers and corridors. Their placement dimensions, and proportions are not random. They are part of a deliberate design that mirrors celestial patterns. To those who knew the language, walking through the pyramid was a journey, a passage through a living text, each step part of a ritual reading of stone. Hieroglyphs, too, are part of this language. Inscriptions found in temples and tombs hint at deeper meanings, often obscured by ritual and symbolism. To the Brotherhood, hieroglyphs were not simply a record of history. They were keys to knowledge, part of the sacred code hidden within the monuments. This language is multi-layered. To the uninitiated, the pyramid is an architectural marvel. To the initiated, it is a scripture. To the Brotherhood, it was a covenant, a way of preserving knowledge across generations without writing it plainly, without making it vulnerable to corruption. Stone became their book, geometry became their alphabet, and alignment became their grammar. The language of the pyramid was also a language of secrecy. The Brotherhood understood that knowledge could be dangerous if misinterpreted. They hid the full meaning behind layers of symbolism, accessible only to those who had undergone the rite of initiation. This was not simply preservation, it was protection. The pyramid was both archive and sanctuary, a place where knowledge could survive untouched. The language speaks not only of science, but of philosophy and destiny. It encodes ideas about humanity's place in the cosmos, the cycle of life and death, and the path of the soul. It is a language that bridges the material and the metaphysical, connecting stone to spirit, architecture to initiation. This is why the pyramid's language is so elusive. It is not meant to be read as a simple text, but to be experienced. The act of entering the pyramid, walking its corridors, passing through its chambers, this is the reading of the language. It is a silent dialogue between builder and seeker, a ritual of understanding written in stone. Modern attempts to decode the pyramid's language have revealed tantalizing possibilities, but no final key. The Brotherhood's code remains partially hidden, a mystery that has endured for centuries. Each discovery raises new questions, suggesting that the pyramid's message is not complete without initiation, without entering into the silence that the Brotherhood preserved. The language of the pyramid changes the way we see these monuments. They are not relics of the past. They are living texts, preserved by a Brotherhood who understood the power of silence and the need for concealment. The pyramid becomes not just a tomb, but an eternal message, encoded for those who know how to listen. The implications of this language are staggering. If the Brotherhood encoded their knowledge in stone, then the pyramids are not simply monuments to kings. They're testaments to a hidden truth, a truth preserved across centuries, awaiting the moment when humanity is ready to understand it. This language leads us deeper into the mystery. It is the key that connects the Brotherhood, the Pharaohs' initiation, the secret chambers, and the forbidden scrolls. Understanding it is the gateway to understanding what the Brotherhood was guarding. Our next section will take us further still into the mathematical and cosmic precision of the pyramids, where stone becomes number and number becomes a language of stars. We will uncover how the Brotherhood spoke not only in stone, but in the language of the universe itself. Mathematics was the language of the Brotherhood, not numbers alone, but a sacred language written in proportion, geometry, and cosmic harmony. For the builders of the pyramids, mathematics was not a tool for measurement. It was a way of connecting Earth to the cosmos, of encoding eternal truth into stone. The Great Pyramid is perhaps the greatest testament to this vision. Its proportions are astonishingly precise, reflecting ratios that have fascinated scholars for centuries. The relationship between its height and base corresponds to the golden ratio, a proportion found throughout nature, art, and the cosmos. This was no accident. The Brotherhood understood these proportions as part of a universal language, a key to understanding the order of the world. Pi, the ancient constant of circles, is also encoded in the pyramid's design. The perimeter of the base, divided by twice its height, yields a value remarkably close to pi. For modern mathematicians, this is astonishing. For the Brotherhood, it was deliberate. The pyramid itself became a mathematical equation, a monument built to embody cosmic truth. But mathematics in the pyramids was more than geometry. It was a code woven into the structure, a language that could be read by those who knew its principles. The placement of chambers, the dimensions of passageways, and even the angles of stone all reflected a deeper knowledge, a knowledge of astronomy, cycles of time, and the harmony of spheres. This knowledge was not public. The Brotherhood kept their mathematics hidden, encoded in ritual and architecture. To the ordinary observer, the pyramid was a marvel of engineering. To the initiate, it was a library of cosmic law, a sanctuary of numbers and proportions that spoke of the eternal order. Mathematics was their covenant, the key to their silence. The mathematics of eternity was also mathematics of initiation. Initiates learned to read proportion and geometry as part of their rite. The numbers were not abstract. They were living principles, guiding the soul toward harmony with the universe. The pyramid itself became a classroom, its dimensions a teaching in sacred mathematics. The precision of the pyramid's mathematics suggests a knowledge far beyond simple engineering. Some researchers believe the Brotherhood possessed an understanding of mathematics that has been lost to time, knowledge that connected geometry to cosmic cycles, number to creation itself. This knowledge was guarded as fiercely as any sacred scroll. Mathematics also tied the pyramid to the cosmos. The angles, the alignments, and the proportions correspond to astronomical cycles. The pyramid becomes not only a tomb or temple, but a mathematical map of the heavens. It was a way for the Brotherhood to embed their knowledge in stone, a language that would survive the erosion of centuries. The Brotherhood saw mathematics as a bridge between worlds. It was a language that spoke to the mind and to the spirit. To encode it in stone was to ensure that the message would endure, even if the names and faces of those who built it were forgotten. Mathematics became the Brotherhood's eternal scripture. This is why the mathematics of the pyramid remains one of history's greatest enigmas. It is a language that transcends time. Every measurement, every ratio, every angle was chosen with intention. They were not merely technical details. They were deliberate inscriptions of knowledge, designed to survive as long as the stone itself. Understanding this mathematics requires more than calculation. It requires initiation. It demands a way of seeing that goes beyond the visible, a sensitivity to the harmony beneath form. The Brotherhood built this language not for the masses, but for those who had been prepared to read it. The implications are profound. If mathematics was the language of the Brotherhood, then the pyramids are not simply monuments. They are equations, sacred formulas that connect human existence to the eternal order. They are physical embodiments of a hidden knowledge that has been guarded for millennia. This knowledge invites us to reconsider the purpose of the pyramids. Were they built merely as tombs for kings, or as monuments to a higher truth? Were they intended to preserve mathematics as a sacred language, a code to be deciphered by the worthy? The answer may lie in the continuation of this secret, in the Brotherhood's silent mission across the centuries. Our next step will take us beyond mathematics into the realm of the cosmic, where number becomes star and stone becomes a map of the heavens. We will explore the Brotherhood's celestial knowledge, and how they used the language of the cosmos to guard their greatest secret. The pyramids are written in stone, but they are also written in the sky. Their builders spoke not only the language of mathematics, but the language of the stars. This is the celestial code, a silent script etched into the landscape, aligning Earth to the heavens in ways that still puzzle modern science. The Great Pyramid is aligned with an accuracy unmatched by most of humanity's engineering. Its sides point with astonishing precision to the cardinal directions. Its shafts are aligned to specific stars and constellations, not by accident, but by deliberate design. This was the Brotherhood's way of embedding the cosmos into stone. The Celestial Code is an ancient language of orientation. To the Brotherhood, the stars were not distant points of light, but living symbols, markers of time, destiny, and hidden knowledge. The alignment of the pyramids reflects a cosmic calendar, a map that connects human history to the cycles of the heavens. The star alignments of the pyramids are not merely decorative or ceremonial. They carry meaning. Some point toward Orion's belt, a constellation linked to Osiris, god of the afterlife. Others align with Sirius, a star central to Egyptian cosmology. These alignments suggest an intention far beyond earthly architecture. They speak of a cosmic order encoded in stone. The Celestial Code was not written for the many. It was for the initiated, those who had undergone the rite of the Pharaoh's initiation and learned the language of geometry and proportion. To them, the pyramid was both a temple and a telescope, an earthly reflection of the heavens above. Each alignment was a word in a language of cosmic truth. This language of the heavens also connected to the Brotherhood's sacred knowledge of time. The pyramids are aligned not only to specific stars, but to cycles of celestial movement. They embody an understanding of astronomy that surpasses much of modern knowledge. The Brotherhood preserved this knowledge in stone, encoding it for those who could read the code. The Celestial Code extended beyond the pyramid itself. Temples, monuments, and sacred sites across Egypt were aligned with the stars, forming a network of cosmic architecture. This network was the Brotherhood's library, a landscape written in stone and sky, carrying a knowledge meant to endure beyond generations. To the Brotherhood, the sky was a living text. The movement of stars was a language, their positions a script written across the heavens. The pyramids were designed as a response, stone verses that reflected the cosmic poem above. Initiates would walk this architecture as a way of reading the sky. The idea of a celestial code is supported by more than alignment. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the heavens as the dwelling place of the divine, a cosmic mirror of Earth. The Brotherhood encoded this belief in the pyramids, creating monuments that became bridges between worlds, between Earth and sky, mortal and eternal. The precision of the celestial alignments suggests a knowledge passed through centuries, guarded as part of the Brotherhood's mission. To encode such alignment required advanced astronomy, mathematics, and ritual. It required a vision of the cosmos as a living system, a belief the Brotherhood preserved in secrecy. The Celestial Code is not fully understood even today. Modern science has revealed alignments, but their full meaning remains elusive. This is no accident. The Brotherhood designed their language to be uncovered slowly as initiates matured in understanding. The code was as much a test as a message. This idea transforms how we view the pyramids. They're not static relics. They're dynamic texts connected to the living movement of the cosmos. The Brotherhood built them as eternal markers, designed to speak across time to those who knew how to read the language. The Celestial Code also points to something greater, a hidden purpose. If the pyramids were built as part of a cosmic language, then their true function may lie beyond burial or monument. They may have been designed as part of a map, a guide, or a gateway to knowledge that the Brotherhood deemed too powerful to reveal openly. This brings us closer to the heart of the mystery. The Celestial Code is not simply astronomy. It is a cosmic covenant. It is a message from the Brotherhood to future generations, preserved in stone and sky. It is an invitation to look upward, to see beyond the visible, and to remember that knowledge is a language that bridges worlds. Our next section will take us deeper into this covenant, exploring the Brotherhood's secret teachings and the mysteries they embedded in the monuments. We will step into the realm where stone becomes star and architecture becomes an eternal dialogue with the heavens. The Brotherhood was not content to build monuments alone. Their true mission was to pass down hidden teachings, a body of wisdom preserved in silence and ritual. These teachings were not written openly. They were encoded in the pyramids, hidden in temple reliefs, and passed down orally through generations. They were the heart of the Brotherhood's covenant. The hidden teachings were not simply knowledge of architecture or astronomy. They were a philosophy of existence. They spoke of humanity's place in the cosmos, the nature of life and death, and the path of the soul beyond the physical. To the Brotherhood, knowledge was a sacred trust, a responsibility greater than any crown or throne. Initiation was the path to these teachings. The Pharaoh's rite was only the first step. True access to the Brotherhood's knowledge required deeper preparation, a willingness to undergo transformation. This was not merely a matter of study, but of becoming. The teachings were guarded so closely because they were living truths, dangerous if misunderstood. The Brotherhood's lessons were encoded in many forms. Geometry, proportion, and alignment were their language, but ritual was their method. Every ceremony, every structure was designed to convey a principle, a truth hidden in symbolism. To the initiated, every detail became a teaching. To the uninitiated, it remained mystery. These teachings were both practical and metaphysical. They contained knowledge of the heavens and the earth, of mathematics and medicine, of ritual and morality. But beyond practical knowledge lay a deeper aim, the awakening of the soul. The Brotherhood believed that understanding the universe required an inner transformation, a shift in consciousness that could only be achieved through initiation and silence. Some fragments of these teachings survive in the pyramid texts and other ancient inscriptions. They speak of resurrection, of journeys beyond the mortal world, of a path toward unity with the eternal. These fragments suggest that the Brotherhood's teachings were not confined to Egypt, but part of a universal tradition, a thread of wisdom stretching across cultures and ages. The secrecy of the teachings was their safeguard. The Brotherhood understood that the power they carried could be misused. Knowledge without wisdom is dangerous, they believed. So they concealed their greatest lessons, revealing them only to those prepared to bear them. This secrecy was both a protection and a test. Only the worthy could pass through the threshold. The hidden teachings also bound the Brotherhood together. They were not simply guardians of monuments, but custodians of a living tradition. Initiates became part of a lineage, carrying forward a knowledge older than the pyramids themselves. This continuity gave the Brotherhood its strength and ensured that their covenant endured through the ages. The form of these teachings was deliberate. They were not written plainly to prevent corruption, but encoded to protect their essence. Geometry, symbolism, and ritual became the language of transmission. To decode, the teachings required not only intellect, but initiation, the transformation of the seeker into a keeper of the covenant. The Brotherhood's hidden teachings challenge our understanding of history. They suggest that the pyramids were not simply tombs, but schools of initiation. They propose that the Brotherhood preserved a body of wisdom so profound it could not be entrusted to the unprepared. The monuments themselves became their textbook, and silence became their method of teaching. The significance of these teachings lies in their purpose. They were designed not for the many, but for those who could carry forward the responsibility of truth. They were a covenant written in stone, preserved by secrecy, and passed down through initiation. They were the Brotherhood's gift to the future. Understanding these teachings changes the way we view the pyramids and the Brotherhood. The monuments become more than relics. They become living temples, preserving a philosophy of existence. The Brotherhood becomes not simply a secret order, but a bridge between humanity and the eternal. Our next step will take us deeper into the mystery of the Brotherhood's teachings, exploring the rituals and symbols they use to preserve their knowledge. We will enter the realm of the unseen, where silence becomes scripture and initiation becomes revelation. Silence, for the Brotherhood, it was not the absence of speech, but the presence of understanding. It was their sacred discipline, their method of preserving truth beyond words. Every initiate who entered the inner chambers of the pyramid knew that silence was the first gate of wisdom. Only through silence could the hidden teachings be received, and only through silence could they endure. The rituals of silence began long before an initiate ever touched the stone of the Great Pyramid. The process of initiation required purification, not only of the body, but of the mind. Candidates were stripped of their names, their possessions, and their pride. They were led through darkness, guided by the whisper of chants echoing through the temple corridors. Silence was not demanded. It was absorbed like air in the lungs of eternity. These rituals were designed to dissolve the illusion of self. The initiate learned that knowledge was not something possessed, but something that possessed you. The Brotherhood believed that only through the quieting of the outer world could the inner world awaken. To speak carelessly was to scatter power. To remain silent was to gather it. Inside the pyramid, silence was everywhere. The corridors absorbed sound. The air was thick, heavy with stillness, as if the stones themselves were listening. In that silence, the initiate faced themselves, their fears, their memories, their illusions. This was the first trial. The Brotherhood's silence was not imposed. It was earned through confrontation with the void within. The rituals themselves were veiled in mystery. Ancient inscriptions and scattered texts suggest that the Brotherhood used sound sparingly, chants, resonant tones, and harmonic vibrations that echoed through the chambers. The rest was silence. The vibrations of these sacred tones were said to align the initiate's spirit with the frequency of the cosmos. Afterward, silence would follow, the silence of union, when no words were needed. In the deeper chambers, silence became something else entirely. It was no longer a lack of sound, but a medium, a presence that carried meaning. The Brotherhood taught that the universe itself was born from silence, that creation emerged from the stillness before the first sound. To master silence was to return to that origin, to touch the eternal source. The rituals of silence also served as a test of loyalty. Initiates were required to guard what they had learned with their lives. Betrayal of the teachings was unthinkable, not because of punishment, but because of what it meant to the soul. To break the silence was to shatter harmony with the cosmos. Secrecy was not fear, it was devotion. Every stage of the Brotherhood's training was marked by silence. There were periods of seclusion lasting days, sometimes weeks, when initiates would remain alone in darkness, meditating within narrow chambers deep inside the pyramid. These moments were meant to awaken perception, to attune the mind to subtler realities. In silence, they learned to listen, not to voices but to vibrations, to the hum of life itself. The power of silence also extended beyond initiation. The Brotherhood used silence as a form of communication, a way of transmitting knowledge through presence rather than speech. Master and disciple could share understanding through a glance, a gesture, or a moment of shared stillness. In their world, truth was too vast for words. Only silence could contain it. Modern scholars often misunderstand this practice, assuming secrecy meant suppression. But to the Brotherhood, silence was not secrecy, it was reverence. Words diminish what they describe, but silence preserves the wholeness of the mystery. Their silence was an act of faith, faith that truth does not need defense, only recognition. The symbolism of silence appears everywhere in the surviving fragments of their teachings. The closed mouth of statues, the still gaze of the pharaohs, the sacred gesture of the finger pressed to the lips, all speak of the Brotherhood's vow. These symbols remind us that silence was their seal, their covenant with eternity. In a world now filled with noise, the Brotherhood's silence feels almost alien, and yet it may hold the key to understanding their endurance. Words fade, texts are lost, languages die, but silence cannot be erased. It remains constant, the one medium through which the eternal continues to speak. The rituals of silence are still echoed today in fragments, in the quiet moments of meditation, in the hush of sacred places, in the instinct to fall silent before something greater than ourselves. Perhaps that instinct is what the Brotherhood sought to preserve, a memory of the world's first silence, the stillness before creation. Their silence was both shield and scripture. It protected what could not be spoken and preserved what could not be written. Through it, the Brotherhood carried their teachings across generations, unseen yet unbroken. It was silence that allowed them to endure while empires rose and fell, while languages changed and memories faded. The Brotherhood's rituals remind us that some truths are too vast for language, too sacred for proclamation. They must be lived, felt, and carried in the heart. The silence they left behind still lingers in the chambers of the pyramids, a soundless hymn to eternity, waiting for those who can hear. In the next chapter, we will descend even deeper into the secret chambers where the Brotherhood kept their most guarded relics. These were the rooms of resonance, where stone, sound, and silence merged into one, and where, according to ancient whispers, the Brotherhood touched the very vibration of creation itself. Deep within the pyramid, past the long, narrow corridors and the heavy slabs of limestone, there are chambers that whisper, not with voices, but with vibrations. These are known to the Brotherhood as the rooms of resonance. They were the sacred heart of the structure, built not for the dead, but for the living, for those who sought to hear the hidden music of creation itself. The air in these rooms is different. Even now, visitors report a strange pressure, a hum that seems to vibrate through the bones rather than the ears. Modern acoustics confirms what the Brotherhood knew thousands of years ago. These spaces amplify sound in extraordinary ways. A single tone can echo endlessly, merging with its own reflection, building into a deep harmonic that fills the chamber. But to the Brotherhood, this was not a coincidence of architecture, it was a key. They believed that every element of the universe vibrated with a frequency, and that harmony between these vibrations was the secret to life, consciousness, and even immortality. The rooms of resonance were designed to tune the initiate's soul to that cosmic harmony. When the rituals began, the chambers came alive. Chants and deep tones would reverberate through the stone, creating waves of vibration that could be felt through the chest and spine. The air itself became a living presence. Initiates were said to experience visions, flashes of light, a sense of leaving the body, of merging with something vast and eternal. To the untrained, these experiences were overwhelming. To the Brotherhood, they were sacred proof of alignment with the divine frequency. The resonance of the rooms was not created by accident. The dimensions of each chamber, the angle of the walls, and the type of stone used were all carefully chosen to produce specific frequencies. Modern researchers have discovered that the king's chamber, for example, resonates around 440 Hz, a tone that aligns closely with what later became the standard pitch in modern music. This tone, the Brotherhood believed, was the voice of order in the universe. In these chambers, silence and sound became one. The vibrations would begin with a single tone, struck by the voice or a simple instrument, and soon the entire room would seem to respond. The sound would grow, filling every corner, creating a sense of infinity. The Brotherhood taught that this was the echo of the cosmos, the same sound that had birthed creation, now heard again within stone. The rooms of resonance also served another purpose: initiation through frequency. Each initiate would spend time within these chambers, exposed to specific tones and rhythms. The process was believed to cleanse the spirit, awaken dormant perception, and prepare the mind for higher understanding. It was a form of spiritual tuning, aligning the human body with the vibration of eternity. Legends tell of initiates who entered these rooms as ordinary men and emerged transformed. Some said they could hear the stars singing, others that they could see the invisible geometry of sound. The Brotherhood guarded these experiences with utmost secrecy, for they believed the power of vibration was not meant for all. Used wrongly, it could unbalance both body and world. Sound was the Brotherhood's most sacred tool. Unlike symbols or words, vibration could not be corrupted or misinterpreted. It was pure. It was direct. They believed that through resonance, the divine could speak without language. The rooms of resonance were their temples of communication, where the initiate listened not with the ears, but with the soul. Even today, scientists who study the acoustics of the Great Pyramid find anomalies they cannot explain. Low-frequency hums, resonant chambers, and tones that seem to shift with movement. To the rational mind, these are curiosities of engineering. To the Brotherhood, they were portals, acoustic mirrors reflecting the harmony of the cosmos. The deeper symbolism of resonance went beyond sound. The Brotherhood taught that all things, thought, emotion, matter, carried frequency. Harmony was life. Dissonance was decay. Through the rooms of resonance, they sought to restore balance, both within themselves and within the world. This belief, that vibration was the essence of existence, would echo through later traditions in sacred chants, mantras, and music across cultures. The rituals in the rooms of resonance were also said to reveal the second silence. After the tones subsided, an absolute stillness would follow, a silence so complete that initiates claimed to hear their own heartbeat merge with the pulse of the earth. In that moment, they said the distinction between self and cosmos dissolved. The initiate did not simply hear creation, they became part of it. These rooms were not meant for kings or priests, but for those few who sought to touch the eternal. Their construction, their acoustic perfection, and their symbolism all point to a purpose far greater than tombs. They were machines of awakening, spiritual instruments designed to remind humanity of its place within the grand vibration of existence. When the last tones faded and the initiate stepped out into the dim torchlight, the world no longer looked the same. Every sound, every movement, every breath carried a deeper rhythm. The rooms of resonance had done their work. The initiate had been tuned to eternity. To this day, the secret of how the Brotherhood achieved such resonance remains unknown. Was it through geometry, stone, and design alone? Or did they possess a knowledge of sound and energy that modern science has yet to rediscover? The mystery endures, resonating through time like a tone that never truly fades. In the next section, we will follow the Brotherhood beyond the pyramid walls, into the deserts where they hid the instruments of their power, the relics that could reproduce the same celestial vibrations. There, among shifting sands and forgotten ruins, we will uncover what the ancient texts call the instruments of the gods. Far beyond the polished stones of the pyramids, deep within the endless dunes where wind and time erase all traces of man, there lies another secret of the Brotherhood, one they guarded more fiercely than any written scripture. These were the instruments of the gods, the sacred devices said to harness the frequencies of creation itself. To the uninitiated, they appeared as relics of strange design, rods, bowls, and plates that shimmered faintly under the sun, their surfaces marked with patterns resembling sound waves. But to those who understood, they were tools of unimaginable precision, each one designed to resonate with the hidden music of the universe. The instruments were not forged by ordinary means. Legends say they were born from a union of earth and sky, metals mined from fallen stars, fused with crystal dust that once reflected the first dawn of the world. Their makers worked in silence, guided by geometry, by vibration, and by dreams. For the Brotherhood believed that the gods themselves had once shaped the world not with hands, but with sound, and that by recreating these tones, one could touch that same creative power. Each instrument was said to hold a frequency aligned with an element of existence. One resonated with the waters, another with the winds, another with the pulse of the earth itself. When struck or sung into, they produced tones that seemed alive, vibrating not only through the air, but through the very ground. The Brotherhood called them voices of the deep, and believed that when played together in perfect harmony, they could open a gateway between worlds, the seen and the unseen, the mortal and the divine. Some accounts describe ceremonies where initiates gathered at night, far from the eyes of kings, beneath the canopy of stars. The air would tremble as the instruments were awakened. Low hums and crystalline chimes would weave together, forming layers of sound that grew denser, more radiant, until the desert itself seemed to shimmer with light. The Brotherhood stood at the center of that sound, breathing as one, their chants merging with the tones. And as the vibrations reached their peak, the boundary between matter and spirit was said to dissolve. Modern researchers who have studied ancient depictions of these ceremonies notice peculiar shapes. Bowls with perfect harmonic proportions, rods inscribed with concentric rings, and elongated staffs tipped with quartz or gold. These are not decorative. Their design suggests an understanding of resonance that rivals our most advanced acoustic technology. How a civilization thousands of years ago could craft such precision instruments remains one of history's most haunting questions. It is said that during the height of their power, the Brotherhood used these instruments to restore balance in the land. When a Nile faltered, when sickness spread, when tempests rose, the instruments were played and harmony was restored. They believed that disharmony in nature reflected disharmony within the human spirit. Through sound, they could heal both. To them, vibration was not metaphor. It was medicine, energy, and creation itself. Some texts found in later temples describe a device called the scepter of breath, believed to amplify the voice until it could shake stone. Another, the chalice of stillness, produced no audible tone but could silence all sound around it, creating a void where only thought remained. Then there was the mirror of air, a circular plate that seemed to vibrate without touch, reflecting not the face of the beholder, but waves of color that pulsed like living light. Whether these descriptions are symbolic or literal, their meaning is clear. The Brotherhood saw sound as the divine architect of all reality. The instruments of the gods also carried immense danger. Improper use could unbalance the frequencies they sought to control. Legends tell of an apprentice who struck the chalice at the wrong tone, and the ground itself fractured, swallowing the chamber whole. Another tale speaks of a ritual interrupted, its resonance twisting into chaos, leaving the participants deaf and senseless. The Brotherhood guarded the knowledge of proper frequencies like a sacred flame. Only those who had passed the trials of resonance were permitted to touch the instruments. When their order began to fade, when temples fell and kings turned their hunger toward conquest, the Brotherhood knew the instruments must be hidden. They believed that in the wrong hands, the voices of the gods could bring ruin. So they scattered them across the earth, embedding clues within myths, carving coordinates into walls that only those attuned to the ancient harmonies could decode. One was said to be buried beneath the sands near Abydos, another within the limestone caves of the Sinai, and another beneath the ruins of an island swallowed by the sea. Each was sealed with a tone that only a true initiate could reproduce. Even in later centuries, echoes of these instruments appear in strange places. Tibetan singing bowls, Sufi whirling chants, Gregorian tones, and even the harmonic overtones of shamanic drums all bear traces of the same principle: vibration as a bridge to the divine. It is as if fragments of the Brotherhood's science scattered like seeds, finding soil in distant lands and growing into the sacred music of every civilization. To the few who still seek them, the instruments of the gods are not mere artifacts but keys, each capable of unlocking dormant frequencies within the human spirit. The ancient writings suggest that when all are reunited and played together beneath the right stars, they would recreate the primordial sound that began creation, a sound so powerful it could awaken the memory of eternity within all who heard it. But perhaps the most haunting aspect of these instruments is what they imply. If the Brotherhood truly possessed such knowledge, then our modern understanding of history is incomplete. It would mean that long before the rise of recorded civilization, there existed a science, a union of sound, geometry, and consciousness, capable of altering the very fabric of reality. In the final records of the Brotherhood, there is a prophecy written not in words, but in vibration. It is said that one day, when humanity again approaches the brink of silence, when the world forgets the music that binds it together, the tones of the instruments will return. Their echoes will rise from the dust, calling us to remember what we once knew, that we are not separate from the cosmos, but part of its endless song. As the sands shift and the stars turn, the instruments of the gods remain hidden, waiting for the moment when their song will once again awaken the world. In the stillness of the modern age, when the hum of machines has replaced the breath of the wind and cities pulse with artificial light, there are whispers of a return. The old songs, long buried beneath centuries of silence, have begun to stir again. Across the world, scattered individuals, unaware of one another, speaking different tongues, raised in different faiths, have started to dream the same dream. They hear a tone in the night, faint and distant, yet familiar, as if echoing from a time before memory. The Brotherhood once called them the sound-bearers, souls destined to awaken when the harmony of the world was once more in danger of collapse. No record tells how these new bearers are chosen, yet every account follows a pattern. A sudden pull toward the forgotten, an inexplicable urge to seek the ancient tones. Some are drawn to deserts, others to mountains or ruined temples. One may find themselves entranced by a vibration that seems to emanate from the stones of an abandoned cathedral. Another may hear it in the crash of waves against rock. It is never loud, never forceful. It calls softly, like an old friend reminding them of a promise made before birth. In laboratories and sound studios, scientists have begun recording mysterious frequencies, tones that appear out of nowhere, not traceable to any known device. They call them earth hums or microresonances, dismissing them as natural anomalies. But among the few who listen deeply, who close their eyes and allow the vibration to fill them, something awakens, a recognition beyond intellect, as if the body itself remembers the sound of creation. These people report visions, fragments of ancient rituals, glimpses of glowing instruments, and symbols that they later discover carved on stones thousands of years old. One such vision, recorded by a woman in the Andes, described standing beneath a black sky filled with trembling stars. Before her floated a sphere of light pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. When she extended her hand, the light dissolved into 1,000 ripples, each forming a tone. The tones merged, forming a single, unbroken hum. The same sound captured weeks later on seismic sensors halfway across the planet. No connection was found. Yet the pattern of the frequency matched one discovered inscribed on an artifact from Abydos, one believed to represent the instruments of the gods. Those who experience these phenomena often face disbelief, even ridicule. Yet within them grows a certainty that something vast and ancient is moving beneath the surface of reality. They begin to sense harmonies in ordinary sounds, the hum of a refrigerator aligning perfectly with the pitch of the wind outside, the rhythm of their breath syncing with distant thunder. Slowly, the world around them ceases to feel random. It becomes a song once more, and they the long-forgotten singers. The sound bearers do not belong to any single faith, nor do they follow one path. They appear in monasteries and megacities, in forests and on trains, in children who hum strange melodies in their sleep, and in old men who awaken with tears and words in forgotten languages. Some find themselves compelled to build, creating devices from crystal, copper, and glass without understanding why. Others begin to chant tones that heal, altering the atmosphere around them in subtle, measurable ways. Scientists studying these individuals note abnormal coherence in their brainwave patterns, frequencies aligning to a shared rhythm, as though connected by an invisible conductor. There are those who claim that deep beneath the deserts of Egypt, within a chamber long sealed by shifting sands, a vibration has begun to resonate once more. Instruments thought lost have started to awaken, responding to the tone rising in the hearts of these scattered souls. It is said that when a bearer hums the note of their awakening, a distant chamber answers, vibrating in harmony. If true, it would mean that the Brotherhood's legacy was not entirely buried, that it was only sleeping, waiting for the return of its heirs. As the number of awakenings grows, ancient symbols have begun to reappear in unexpected places. Patterns once carved into temple walls are found forming naturally in the sand, in frost on windows, and the flight of birds. Some call it coincidence, others synchronicity. But to those who feel the vibration within, it is confirmation. The world itself is remembering. A new understanding is emerging, one that unites science and myth. Quantum physicists speak of vibration as the fundamental nature of reality, of particles existing as frequencies rather than solid forms. Mystics nod, smiling, for they have always known. The sound bearers are bridges between these worlds. They are the living instruments, their voices and hearts resonating with the same cosmic tone once harnessed by the ancients. In the quiet of night, when the noise of human invention fades, they gather unconsciously. Some meditate alone on mountaintops. Others sing beneath streetlights, unaware that their tones are part of the same great chord. Though they may never meet, their sounds weave together across distance, creating an invisible network of resonance. Sensitive instruments have detected unexplained fluctuations in global electromagnetic fields at moments corresponding to such gatherings. Something is forming, a pattern, an awakening tone that echoes the lost harmony of the Brotherhood. Among them are those who remember more. Fragments of past lives return in dreams. Visions of vast halls filled with glowing instruments, chants rising in spirals of sound and light. They remember the feel of resonance passing through their bones, the moment the boundary between human and divine dissolved. These dreams are not nostalgia, they are instructions. Each bearer feels drawn to a specific location, a fragment of the earth where a hidden instrument might lie. The deserts of Arabia, the cliffs of Peru, the frozen plains of Siberia, all hum faintly, as if waiting. The prophecy of the Brotherhood spoke of this time, when a world's dissonance would reach its peak, when the balance between creation and destruction would tremble on the edge of silence. Then the bearers would rise, not as priests or kings, but as ordinary souls who remember how to listen. Their task would not be conquest, but restoration, to remind humanity that the world was never built from matter alone, but from harmony. They will not come with banners or miracles. Their power will be quiet, almost invisible, a song sung to a child that eases their fear, a vibration that calms a storm, a tone that mends a broken heart. The instruments of the gods were once tools of immense energy, but now their essence lives within these people, living conduits through which the old frequencies return. And when enough of them awaken, when their scattered tones finally converge, it is said the earth itself will sing. The air will tremble not in destruction, but in remembrance. Mountains will hum, oceans will shimmer, and every living being will feel, for a single breath, that they are part of the same eternal sound. The Brotherhood called it the Great Return, the moment when creation would once again recognize its own song. And somewhere, beneath the sands or within the stars, the lost instruments will awaken, not as relics of the past, but as reflections of what we have always been, bearers of sound, keepers of harmony, fragments of a divine music that never truly ended. Night falls over the desert, and silence takes its throne. The wind, for centuries a wanderer among forgotten stones, carries now a faint vibration. It begins as nothing, a breath between grains of sand, but slowly it grows, trembling through the dunes like a heartbeat awakening after ages of sleep. Beneath the earth, in a chamber that has not known human touch for millennia, the walls begin to hum. Dust drifts down from the ceiling in soft cascades as a tone ripples through the stones. The Great Pyramid, long thought a tomb of the dead, stirs like a living creature remembering its name. This is the last resonance, the echo of the ancient Brotherhood returning through time. Those who feel it first are not scholars or priests. They are wanderers, dreamers, those who have never stopped listening. In distant corners of the world, the sound bearers lift their heads at once, sensing a change. In a monastery in Tibet, a monk in meditation opens his eyes, tears falling silently as he hears a tone no human voice has sung in thousands of years. In a crowded city, a child stops crying mid-sob, gazing at nothing with quiet awe. The vibration has reached them. The song is calling. Across oceans, instruments measure strange fluctuations. Low-frequency waves pulse through the earth, synchronized, steady, rhythmic, as if the planet itself has begun to breathe. Scientists scramble to explain it, calling it magnetic resonance or tectonic interference. But a handful of researchers, those who have read too much ancient lore to dismiss coincidence, begin to suspect something else. They gather old maps, compare myth to data, and find that the waves radiate outward from a single point, the heart of the Great Pyramid. Inside the chamber, the vibration deepens. The air grows dense, thick with energy that feels both ancient and alive. On the walls, unseen patterns flicker into faint light. Geometric symbols, once carved by human hands, now glowing softly like embers reigniting. These are not mere decorations, they are codes. Each symbol hums at its own frequency, forming a living equation of sound and light. The Brotherhood called this the language of resonance, a form of communication older than speech, where every tone carries both meaning and emotion. The last resonance was not a myth. It was a promise. The Brotherhood knew that one day, humanity would forget the harmony of existence, drowning in its own noise. When that dissonance reached its breaking point, the old frequencies would rise again, not to punish, but to restore. The pyramids, the temples, the instruments scattered across continents. They were never monuments to gods. They were tuning forks for the planet, designed to awaken when the time came. That time, it seems, has arrived. As the tone intensifies, a faint shimmer rises in the desert air above the pyramid. From a distance, it looks like heat, but closer it becomes something else. Waves of light bending rhythmically, pulsing in time with the vibration beneath the sand. Travelers who see it later describe it as a mirage that sang, a glow that seemed to breathe. Some fall to their knees in awe, others flee in terror, feeling something within them stir, something too vast to comprehend. And then, for the first time in recorded memory, the pyramid responds. A low, harmonic pulse emerges from deep within, traveling through the air, invisible but undeniable. Birds scatter into the night. The sands tremble. Far away, in cities and mountains, the sound bearers begin to hum instinctively. Without knowing why, they match the tone. Across the globe, scattered voices rise into unison. The resonance grows stronger. At that moment, time feels thin. The veil between past and present stretches, and echoes of the Brotherhood return. Shadows of the old initiates seem to move across the chamber walls, not as ghosts, but as memories replaying themselves. They stand with their instruments of crystal and bronze, their eyes closed, chanting in tones that intertwine with the modern hum. For a heartbeat, the ages align. The ancient and the living sing together. The world changes subtly. Lights flicker in cities, compasses spin. Whales in the ocean alter their songs to match the new tone, and forests sway as if caught in a rhythm older than seasons. Everything that vibrates, every atom, every cell, every drop of water begins to respond. It is not chaos. It is a great tuning. Humanity, without realizing, becomes part of a planetary symphony. But the Brotherhood's records warned of one more truth. Harmony always demands balance. To restore the world's vibration, the dissonance must first be revealed. As the resonance spreads, hidden fractures begin to surface, emotional, spiritual, even geological. The tone shakes loose not only ancient dust, but also the suppressed grief of civilizations. People begin to dream more vividly, remembering losses long buried. Secrets emerge. Empires tremble. The tone, gentle yet relentless, insists on truth. Deep within the chamber, the vibration reaches its peak. The glowing symbols flare brighter, converging into a single pulse of golden light. Then silence. Absolute, perfect silence. Not the absence of sound, but the moment after a great chord resolves, when every vibration finds its home. The air feels sacred. The stones seem to breathe. In that silence, a vision unfolds. Those attuned to the resonance see a vast field of light, stretching beyond the stars. At its center, a single note hovers, not heard but felt. It carries every memory, every dream, every spark of life that has ever existed. It is the tone that began the universe, the one the Brotherhood sought to remember through their pyramids and instruments. The initiates once called it the breath of Adam, the pulse of the One. For a brief moment, humanity hears it again. Across the planet, millions stop without knowing why. Conversations halt, music quiets, even the winds seem to pause. Hearts synchronize. The vibration passes through them, leaving warmth, sorrow, and awe in equal measure. When it fades, something remains, an understanding, faint yet undeniable, the memory of unity. The last resonance does not destroy. It awakens. It does not command. It reminds. For the sound bearers, this is the moment their purpose is revealed, not to summon gods, but to remind humankind that creation itself is a song still being sung. They understand now that the instruments of the gods were never objects, but reflections of the divine within every living being. As dawn rises over the desert, the shimmer above the pyramid dissolves. The sand is still again. Yet those who were there swear they can still feel the vibration beneath their feet, pulsing like the faint echo of a heartbeat. It is not ending. It is beginning again, quietly, humbly, through those who have learned to listen. The Brotherhood's final prophecy said, "When the song returns, so will remembrance. And the world shall choose harmony or silence." And as the sun burns gold across the stones, the echo lingers, waiting for its answer. When the last resonance faded into silence, the world did not return to normal. It could not. Something subtle yet irreversible had shifted in the fabric of reality, as if the tone had carved a new layer into time itself. People everywhere began to feel it, a quiet awareness that lingered at the edge of thought. They could not explain it, but they could sense it, a soft hum beneath the noise of daily life, like the heartbeat of the world whispering, "I am still here." The great remembering began not as an event, but as a feeling. Farmers in remote fields paused mid-harvest, overcome by sudden emotion, tears rising without reason. Musicians woke from dreams with melodies they had never learned yet somehow knew. Children began sketching geometric shapes in sand and chalk, spirals, triangles, interlocking circles. The same symbols once carved into the walls of temples lost to time. No one understood why, but they all felt a yearning, an ache to return to something ancient and true. In cities, the hum of machines seemed to change. Some claimed to hear patterns in the traffic, the echo of the resonance shaping even chaos into rhythm. A scientist in Japan recorded vibrations in steel bridges that matched frequencies found in sacred chants. In Peru, a group of linguists discovered that tonal shifts in local dialects aligned with the same harmonic ratio encoded in pyramid design. Coincidence, they said, but too many coincidences began to form a pattern. The great remembering was not limited to sound. It was awakening through memory. People began to dream of lives they had never lived, dreams filled with golden light, vast stone halls, and ceremonies of resonance. These dreams were so vivid that when the dreamers awoke, the scent of incense and the echo of low tones lingered in their rooms. Psychologists called it mass archetypal emergence. Mystics called it what it was, the awakening of ancestral memory. The Brotherhood's knowledge, long buried in the collective unconscious, was rising once more. As the dream spread, so did the recognition. Across continents, strangers who had never met began describing the same visions. They spoke of a vast circle of initiates standing within a chamber of light, each holding a crystal instrument that emitted sound through thought. They remembered the feeling of their hearts vibrating as one, a single, endless note of unity. When they compared their accounts, they found details identical down to the patterns on the walls and the sequence of tones. These were not dreams. They were echoes of lives once lived under another sun. Governments and scientific institutions took notice. At first, they dismissed the phenomenon as collective delusion, the product of global stress and digital influence. But then came the anomalies. Electrical grids pulsed in rhythmic waves synchronized across continents. Ocean tides shifted by fractions outside predictable lunar cycles. In observatories, astronomers reported faint, periodic distortions in starlight, as though light itself was responding to an unseen vibration. The resonance had left an imprint, and that imprint was rewriting the laws of perception. Meanwhile, the sound bearers, now aware of their shared calling, began to gather. They came from every walk of life, teachers, healers, artists, even skeptics drawn by curiosity they could not explain. They met in deserts, forests, mountain caves, and abandoned churches. Without instruments, without scripts, they began to hum. The tones rose, uncertain at first, then finding unity. The gatherings grew larger, the harmonies more intricate. When they sang together, the air shimmered faintly, and those nearby felt waves of calm radiate outward. Plants seemed to grow faster in these places. Animals gathered without fear. Even the sick reported moments of relief. Historians began tracing the phenomenon to ancient prophecy. In hidden manuscripts preserved by monastic orders, they found references to the echo of Adam, a cycle in which the world would forget the song of creation, only to rediscover it in an age of great imbalance. The text spoke of those who carry the tone within, destined to remind the earth of its own rhythm. It was never about worship or power. It was about remembering harmony. But as the light of understanding grew, so too did resistance. There were those who feared what this awakening meant, governments uneasy about what they could not control, corporations wary of a power that could not be owned. Disinformation spread quickly. The gatherings were labeled dangerous cults, the frequencies called psychological manipulation. Yet the more they were silenced, the stronger the movement became. For the first time in centuries, humanity's search for truth was no longer confined to books or beliefs. It was felt directly, vibrating within every cell. The great remembering deepened when the tone began to affect time. Strange phenomena emerged. Clocks subtly losing rhythm, days that seemed to stretch or contract. People reported glimpses of other eras, flashes of ancient cities or unfamiliar skies. Some claimed to have stood within the Great Pyramid during its construction, watching the Brotherhood at work. Time, it seemed, was resonating too, overlapping past and present in waves of remembrance. A moment came when the sound bearers gathered on the solstice. From dozens of locations, they sang at once, an experiment, a ritual, or perhaps both. Satellites detected a sudden, global harmonic wave, invisible but powerful. For 3 minutes, the Earth's magnetic field shimmered like a struck bell. The sky glowed faintly at the horizon, even where no sun shone. When the sound faded, every person involved described the same vision. A single eye of light opening above the world, vast and calm, watching with compassion. After that day, the world began to change more rapidly. Conflict zones reported unexpected ceasefires lasting days, even weeks. Rivers once dry began to flow again after sudden, unpredicted rainfall. The more humanity remembered its place within harmony, the more the planet seemed to respond. Scientists still sought equations, but quietly, many of them began to meditate, to listen, to hum. In the deserts of Egypt, the sands shifted again, uncovering a new entrance near the Great Pyramid, a tunnel no one had mapped before. At its end, explorers found a chamber glowing faintly with golden dust. On its walls were carvings of men and women with radiant hearts, hands outstretched toward a sphere of light. Beneath it, an inscription in ancient script read, "When the tone is remembered, the heart will awaken, and the gods will no longer be above, but within." The great remembering was not the end of mystery, but the beginning of meaning. Humanity began to see that the divine had never been distant, that every sound, thought, and heartbeat was a note in the same eternal song. The Brotherhood had hidden the truth in stone, waiting for a generation that would feel rather than worship. And that generation had finally come. The sound bearers did not seek followers or build temples. Their work was quieter, singing in hospitals, humming in classrooms, whispering the old tones to the dying. Wherever they went, the vibration of life grew steadier, clearer. It was not magic. It was memory. The world was remembering what it had always been, one great resonance, infinite and alive. And as humanity began to hum along once more, the earth exhaled, a long, soft breath of relief that echoed through sky and stone alike. The song had returned home. Beneath the sands of Giza, where light rarely reaches and silence reigns eternal, the explorers descended into the newly uncovered passage. Their footsteps echoed through the narrow corridor, brushing against air that had not been disturbed for thousands of years. The walls pulsed faintly with dust that shimmered like powdered gold, and for a moment it seemed the very stone was alive, breathing, waiting. No one spoke. Words felt too small for what lay ahead. At the tunnel's end, they entered a chamber unlike any they had ever seen, vast yet precise, as if carved by light itself rather than human hands. In its center stood a monolithic slab, smooth as glass, humming with a tone too low to hear, yet strong enough to feel in the bones. The explorers froze. It was not just a monument. It was speaking. The first vibration was soft, a ripple underfoot, then a slow rise through the body, like standing within the heart of a sleeping giant. Their equipment malfunctioned. Audio devices picked up only distortion. Yet each person present later described hearing the same sound within their minds. A deep, resonant voice whispering through stone, ancient and sorrowful. It spoke in no known language, yet every listener understood. You have remembered, and now you must listen. The chamber trembled, dust cascading like rain. One of the explorers, a linguist named Alara Voss, fell to her knees. Her eyes filled with tears as visions unfolded before her. Vast cities of light, oceans shimmering under twin moons, towers made not of metal but tone. The voice showed her the world as it had once been, before the fall, before the long forgetting. It revealed the Brotherhood in their prime, architects of resonance who built with harmony instead of force, who could shape matter, through sound alone. Their temples were instruments, their cities living songs. Humanity had not yet separated itself from creation. Every act, every breath was part of a cosmic rhythm. But as pride grew, the tone fractured. Some sought to use resonance as power rather than communion. The voice's sorrow deepened as it spoke, its echoes weaving through every stone. They forgot that the song was not theirs to control. Alara felt herself pulled deeper into the vision. She stood among the ancient Brotherhood, watching as they argued, those who remembered the original tone against those who sought to weaponize it. The Great Schism began not with war, but with silence. When the sacred harmony was broken, the world itself shuddered. Mountains fell, seas turned dark. The memory of sound was buried beneath layers of fear and time. Only fragments remained, carved in stone, hidden in myth, whispered through dreams. The voice beneath the stone was not merely telling history. It was awakening it. The explorers stood transfixed as the chamber's walls shifted. Symbols began to glow, spirals, eyes, concentric circles intersecting with stars. The patterns pulsed in rhythm with the explorers' heartbeats, sinking until every person present felt themselves dissolve into one unified vibration. The voice continued, calm and immense. You were never separate from the song. You are its echo. You are its continuation. Then silence, a silence so deep it seemed to bend time itself. When the tone faded, Alara realized that the slab in the center was no longer inert. Its surface rippled like water. Beneath the translucent layer of stone, shapes moved, faint silhouettes, like beings suspended in amber. Back on the surface, news of the discovery spread quickly. Footage leaked, glowing inscriptions, instruments melting into light, a human voice where no human stood. The world was captivated, divided between awe and fear. Religious leaders debated its meaning. Scientists argued over authenticity. Yet those who had been inside the chamber carried a mark that no skeptic could erase. A faint vibration beneath their skin, as if the voice had left its signature within them. At night, they could still hear it, soft and patient, humming through the marrow of their bones. Alara withdrew from public view. She spent months transcribing what she remembered of the voice's message, though words felt inadequate. Her notes filled thousands of pages, each describing fragments of the lost harmonic code, sequences of frequencies that, when sung or played, could restore certain natural balances. She discovered that one tone, precisely measured, could purify stagnant water. Another could accelerate seed growth. The most profound frequencies seemed to affect emotion itself, dissolving fear, calming rage. But with every revelation came a warning. The same tones could also unravel, distort, destroy, if used without alignment of heart. Hidden groups began to seek her out. Secret orders, intelligence agencies, religious councils, all wanting the same thing, control. But Alara refused. It doesn't belong to anyone, she said. It belongs to everything. To protect her research, she encoded it into music, compositions that seemed ordinary to the untrained ear, yet beneath the melody, the sacred ratios remained. The pieces spread online quietly, disguised as ambient soundscapes and meditative tracks. Listeners around the world reported strange experiences, spontaneous calm, vivid dreams, even glimpses of light during deep sleep. The great remembering was no longer confined to belief. It had entered the digital pulse of civilization. Meanwhile, strange phenomena continued near the chamber. Instruments placed in the sand recorded faint seismic patterns, not random, but rhythmic. Every 24 hours, a low-frequency pulse rippled outward, as if the earth itself were breathing in tune with the voice. Archaeologists noticed that nearby stones subtly rearranged over time, forming geometric configurations visible only from above. It was as if the land was composing its own symphony, slow and deliberate, guided by a consciousness too vast to comprehend. Then one night, as Alara studied the patterns from her desert encampment, the voice returned, not through stone, but through the air itself. The wind shifted, carrying with it a tone so pure it silenced every insect and stirred the dunes into motion. The stars flickered, and from beneath the sand, faint beams of light began to rise, thousands of them, like threads connecting sky and earth. The voice spoke again, clearer than before. The tone is rising. The cycle turns. Remember not what you have learned, but what you have always known. Alara understood. The chamber was not just a relic. It was a resonance engine, buried to sleep until humanity was ready to awaken. The Brotherhood had hidden it, knowing that one day the world would again learn to listen. That day had come. She fell to her knees, hands trembling as the light enveloped her. The tone grew louder, forming words not in her ears but in her heart. When the stone sings, the stars will answer, and the voice that once created the world will speak again through you. As dawn broke over Giza, the desert shimmered like glass. Every grain of sand seemed to hum with quiet purpose. The voice had gone silent once more, but its message remained, not carved in stone, not written in scripture, but alive within those who had heard it. The song of creation had never been lost. It had simply been waiting beneath the stone, patient as eternity, until someone remembered how to listen. When the first light of dawn spilled across the plateau, the sky above Giza no longer looked the same. The stars, once distant, scattered like shards of broken glass, now shimmered in faint alignment, forming patterns that seemed deliberate, intelligent, alive. Astronomers in Cairo and around the world reported unusual fluctuations, microbursts of energy pulsing from specific constellations, synchronized with the same 24-hour rhythm discovered beneath the sands. Something had changed in the heavens. The earth and stars were beginning to move in resonance again, as if responding to a forgotten signal, the call of the hidden Brotherhood. Alara Voss watched from her small tent near the excavation site. She hadn't slept in days. Her notebooks lay scattered around her, filled with sketches of geometric star maps and fragments of translated tones. Every page vibrated with meaning she couldn't quite articulate. She noticed something strange when she hummed certain notes, one she had transcribed from the chamber's pulse. The stars above flickered more intensely, as if acknowledging her voice. At first, she thought it was her imagination, the fatigue playing tricks. But when she recorded it with infrared lenses, the data confirmed it. The constellations of Orion, Sirius, and Lyra all responded to precise frequencies. The ancient myth of the celestial architects was not poetic metaphor after all. It was literal. News spread quickly. Scientists, mystics, and skeptics converged on Egypt. The media dubbed it the awakening of the stars. Governments tried to restrict access, declaring the site a zone of cultural quarantine, but it was too late. The world had seen. Videos flooded the internet showing strange auroras over deserts, luminous patterns reflected in the Nile, and inexplicable harmonics recorded in the air. Musicians claimed to hear chords resonating through their instruments at night, even when untouched. Somewhere in the background of every recording, a low hum persisted, the same tone heard from the voice beneath the stone. But the most profound shift was not in the sky. It was within people. Across continents, men and women began to experience vivid dreams of pyramids made of light, of cities floating above oceans, of a sound that felt like both memory and prophecy. Children began humming melodies they couldn't have known. Artists painted spiral patterns that matched ancient Egyptian carvings with uncanny precision. It was as though the human subconscious had been tuned to a higher frequency, one that had lain dormant since the fall of the Brotherhood. Alara realized the implications with both awe and terror. The Brotherhood had not only encoded their knowledge in stone, but in the stars themselves. Each pyramid was a resonant key, and when reactivated, it sent harmonic signals to specific celestial points, a stellar network spanning light years. She remembered the voice's words. When the stone sings, the stars will answer. It was answering now, but what exactly was it summoning? In a quiet meeting held beneath the shadow of the Great Pyramid, Alara gathered with a small circle of researchers and mystics, people she trusted, people who had also heard the resonance in their bones. Among them was a historian named Malik Rahim, whose studies of pre-dynastic Egypt hinted at an era far older than mainstream archaeology allowed. He showed Alara fragments of ancient tablets depicting beings descending from constellations, holding orbs of light in their palms, teaching humanity the art of singing to the stones. Malik believed the pyramids were part of an interstellar communication system, not designed to send messages outward, but to awaken the Earth's own consciousness inward. The pyramids aren't transmitters, he said. They're tuning forks. They align not to call the stars, but to remind the Earth of its place among them. That night, the group conducted a simple experiment. Using the frequencies Alara had recorded, they projected harmonic tones through portable resonance devices aimed at the pyramid's base. As the tones deepened, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Instruments registered electromagnetic surges. The air thickened, vibrating with unseen pressure. Then, without warning, beams of faint blue light erupted from the pyramid's apex, extending vertically into the sky. The beams split into 3 streams, each connecting to a constellation. Orion, Sirius, and Lyra glowed brighter than ever before. The observers fell silent, overcome with reverence. The pyramids were awake. What happened next defied logic. Satellites orbiting above captured a phenomenon that would later baffle every physicist on Earth. A burst of coherent energy radiating from Giza, forming a spherical wave that extended thousands of miles before dissipating into space. It was not destructive, no damage, no explosion. Instead, plants in the surrounding desert began to bloom overnight. Air temperature shifted slightly, as if the local atmosphere had become more balanced. The Nile shimmered with strange luminescence, like moonlight trapped beneath the surface. Humanity had triggered something vast, ancient, and benevolent, though its purpose remained unclear. In the days that followed, subtle transformations swept the globe. People began reporting heightened intuition, bursts of creativity, and spontaneous empathy toward others. In cities once filled with chaos, small acts of kindness multiplied. Crime rates dropped inexplicably. Music composed during this period shared similar harmonic ratios to Alara's encoded melodies, suggesting that humanity was unconsciously sinking to the same resonance field. The forgotten song of the Brotherhood was weaving itself back into human civilization, but not everyone welcomed it. Powerful organizations saw the shift as a threat, a force they couldn't control. Alara's communications were intercepted, her research seized. A covert operation attempted to seal the excavation site, citing uncontainable anomalies. Yet each time the authorities tried to bury the chamber again, storms erupted sand rising like waves, as if the desert itself resisted. The earth had chosen not to sleep again. One night, under the brilliant alignment of Orion's belt, Elara stood alone before the glowing pyramid. She felt the tone rising through her body, aligning her heartbeat with the pulse of the stars. The voice returned, soft but clear. Do not fear the awakening. It is not the end of time. It is the end of forgetting. She realized then that the Brotherhood's secret had never been about power or control. It was about remembrance, of unity, of origin, of connection. The stars shimmered brighter, arranging themselves into an ancient symbol she recognized from the chamber's walls. A spiral intersected by a single line, representing the eternal bridge between Earth and cosmos. And as she gazed upward, she understood the full message of the hidden Brotherhood. The pyramids were never tombs, never monuments to death. They were the first instruments of life, built to remind humanity of its song, a song that began among the stars and continues still within every heart that dares to listen. As the resonance reached its peak, Elara whispered the final tone. The pyramid answered with light. Across the sky, constellations shimmered in unison. The earth itself seemed to hum, steady and alive. The awakening had begun, not in the heavens, but within the human soul. The awakening spread like an invisible tide. In the months that followed, whispers of strange encounters began to ripple across the globe. Farmers in the Andes reported seeing shimmering figures walking through their fields at night, leaving trails of light where their feet had touched. In the deserts of Australia, ancient songlines once lost to colonial memory began to echo again through the voices of the elders. And in the Himalayas, monks claimed to hear deep harmonic tones rising from within the mountains themselves. Tones that resonated perfectly with the same frequencies found beneath the Great Pyramid. For Elara Vos, the world had entered a liminal state, not asleep, not awake, but standing at the threshold of remembrance. She had returned to Cairo under false credentials, working from a hidden apartment overlooking the Nile. The government had officially closed the Giza excavation site, sealing it behind walls of armed guards and surveillance drones. Yet every night, the faint hum could still be felt across the city, reverberating through glass, water, and skin. It was as if the earth itself was whispering beneath the noise of civilization. Remember what you are. Elara spent her days decoding fragments from her recordings, correlating the harmonic sequences with newly discovered star alignments. What she found terrified her. The frequencies forming this song of the pyramids were not random. They were part of the countdown. Every passing week, the resonance intensified, and the alignments between Orion, Sirius, and Lyra grew more exact. Something was building toward a moment of convergence. Not destruction, but transformation. The pyramids, she realized, were preparing for a return. The signs multiplied across the planet. Megalithic structures long dismissed as mere ruins began emitting faint electromagnetic signatures. Stone circles in Britain, temples in Cambodia, pyramids in Mexico, all vibrated at the same harmonic baseline. These sites were not isolated marvels of separate civilizations. They were nodes of a single planetary network, designed by the same intelligence, the Brotherhood that had once walked among humanity. For centuries, scholars had wondered how ancient cultures separated by oceans built so similarly. Now, the answer seemed almost too enormous to accept. They were never separated at all. The Earth had once been unified under a single harmonic field, and the pyramids were its beating heart. Elara's research reached a secretive order that had survived in shadows for millennia, the last descendants of the hidden Brotherhood. They called themselves the Keepers of the Tone. They contacted her not through official channels, but through a melody. Late one night, as she played back her recordings, a new note appeared, one she had never entered. It pulsed 3 times, paused, and then resolved into a harmonic she recognized from the chamber beneath Giza. Hidden within the frequencies was a set of coordinates, a location deep in the White Desert west of Nile. She knew what it meant, an invitation. She left Cairo under cover of darkness, traveling by jeep through endless dunes until the road vanished in a pale sand. There, under a crescent moon, she found them. Men and women dressed in plain linen garments, eyes calm but bright with something that felt both human and eternal. They greeted her without words. Instead, they sang soft, resonant notes that filled the air like warm wind. Every tone seemed to carry meaning beyond language. One of them, an older man with a scar running across his temple, stepped forward. "You have heard the voice," he said. "Now you must see the memory." They led her to a hidden canyon where a vast crystalline structure lay half-buried beneath the dunes. Not natural, not stone. It glowed faintly, like the reflection of a moon that was no longer in the sky. The keepers explained that it was a memory core, one of several placed around the world during the Brotherhood's final days. Inside, encoded within light, were records of their knowledge, waiting for the moment humanity could comprehend it again. "The pyramids awakened the stars," the elders said. "Now the stars awaken us." As Alara stepped into the crystal chamber, her surroundings dissolved into brilliance. Scenes unfolded not as visions, but as experiences. She stood in the age before Egypt, before history itself. She saw the Brotherhood, beings of light and form, guiding humanity through the art of resonance. Their temples sang. Their words were frequencies. She saw their fall, not from war, but from distortion. Some had turned inward, seeking control, twisting harmony into domination. When the balance shattered, the earth fell into silence, and the Brotherhood scattered across worlds, vowing to return when humanity could once again hear the song. The light dimmed. Alara found herself kneeling before the elder, tears streaking her face. "Why me?" she whispered. The elder smiled faintly. "Because you listened. The song has always been playing, but few remember to hear." He handed her a small crystal disc engraved with the same spiral symbol she had seen in the chamber. "This is the final note. When the time comes, you must sound it. Only then will the cycle be complete." She left the desert changed. Back in Cairo, the night sky shimmered with a brilliance unseen in recorded history. 3 comets appeared near Orion, their trajectories converging toward Earth. The countdown in her data was nearly at 0. Governments declared states of emergency. Religious leaders called for prayer. But amidst the panic, a quiet knowing spread through those who had felt the resonance, an understanding that what approached was not annihilation, but renewal. Alara prepared the final tone. Using her encoded music as a foundation, she built a vast harmonic sequence designed to synchronize every resonance site across the planet. The signal would be transmitted not through machines, but through human voices. Millions joined in, singers, monks, children, strangers. On the designated night, the world sang as one. The pyramids glowed, temples trembled, and the stars aligned perfectly overhead. As the last note rose into the sky, the earth answered. Light burst from every sacred site simultaneously, weaving a global lattice visible even from orbit. The resonance was complete. Alara stood beneath the Great Pyramid, holding the crystal disk. It pulsed once, twice, then dissolved into her palm like smoke. Above her, Orion's belt flared with impossible brilliance. The voice spoke again for the final time. The Brotherhood is not returning. It was never gone. It lives wherever the song is remembered. In that moment, Alara understood. The hidden brotherhood had not been a secret order of men. It was the collective memory of humanity's higher self, waiting to reawaken through those who dared to listen. The return was not physical. It was spiritual, and as the light spread across the horizon, dissolving boundaries of nation and creed, humanity finally began to hum in harmony with the universe once more. The Brotherhood had risen, not from beneath the stone, but from within the soul. The night of the Great Resonance passed into legend almost instantly. Across continents, witnesses described the same event. Pillars of light piercing the sky, voices merging in unison, the stars flickering as if exhaling after an age of silence. When dawn came, the light faded, but something had shifted, something far deeper than the visible world. The planet felt alive. Cities awoke to a strange calm. Birds flew in unfamiliar formations. Rivers shimmered as if infused with quiet intelligence. Humanity, for the first time in recorded memory, experienced a collective stillness, not the absence of sound, but the presence of harmony. In Cairo, Alara Vos stood before the Great Pyramid, her face streaked with dust and tears. Around her, thousands of people gathered in silence, not celebrating, not fearing, simply feeling. The air itself seemed to hum, a soft resonance between heartbeats. The authorities, once ready to storm the site, now stood motionless, weapons lowered, eyes filled with awe. It was as if the voice had touched everyone, dissolving division in a single tone. Yet amid that serenity, Alara sensed that one final secret remained, one last mystery buried not in the earth, but within the legacy of the pharaohs themselves. She spent days wandering the ruins, drawn by instinct more than logic. Each night she returned to her tent, reviewing ancient papyrus fragments she had long dismissed as metaphor. But one, a fragment known as the Testament of Thoth, caught her eye. It spoke of the chamber that breathes when the stars awaken, a crypt beneath the Sphinx's paw, said to hold the final memory of the Brotherhood. Archaeologists had searched for it for decades without success. Yet now, under the influence of the resonance, the sand itself seemed to shift, revealing subtle patterns that hinted at a buried passage. Guided by local diggers and a handful of trusted allies, Alara began the excavation. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. Heavy, electric, charged with unseen vibration. Finally, after days of careful descent, they reached a sealed door unlike any they had encountered. Its surface was engraved with concentric circles, intersected by lines forming a symbol identical to the one on Alara's vanished crystal disk. A faint hum emanated from within, like a heartbeat trapped in stone. She placed her hand on it, and immediately the symbol began to glow. The door opened with a sound not of grinding rock, but of sighing breath. Inside lay a chamber smaller than she expected. No gold, no relics, no grandeur. Only a single sarcophagus stood in the center, made of translucent quartz. Through it, faint light pulsed like the rhythm of sleep. Upon the lid, carved in immaculate hieroglyphs, were words that defied translation. Yet their meaning unfolded directly in her mind. He who remembers the first song shall awaken the last truth. Alara hesitated, then pressed her hand against the quartz. Instantly, the chamber filled with light. Visions erupted, not of history, but of consciousness itself. She saw the pharaohs, not as kings of conquest, but as guardians of memory. Each ruler had been chosen not for power, but for resonance, their very bloodline attuned to the cosmic frequency. The crowns they wore were tuning devices, the temples they built, resonant amplifiers. Their rituals were not superstition, but precise calibration, maintaining harmony between Earth and cosmos. The hidden Brotherhood had not abandoned Egypt. It had become Egypt. The lineage of the Pharaohs was the Brotherhood incarnate, human vessels carrying the vibration forward through time. She saw the first pharaohs standing beneath stars far brighter than today's, guided by beings of light who taught them to encode memory into stone. Stone endures, they said. When the flesh forgets, the earth will remember. The pyramids were the memory the song made solid. Each block was a note, each alignment a chord. And as ages passed, when the tones fell silent, the knowledge became myth. The Brotherhood faded into legend. Osiris, Isis, Thoth, deities fashioned from memories of those who had once walked as living harmonics between heaven and earth. Alera's body trembled as the truth unfolded. The sarcophagus before her began to shimmer, and the quartz grew transparent. Inside lay not a corpse, but a shape of light, a human form woven from radiance. It opened its eyes. The chamber filled with resonance so pure it erased all thought. The being spoke without sound. We are the bridge. The song is eternal. You have awakened the last tone. Alera fell to her knees. Then the cycle is complete, she whispered. The being smiled, not with lips, but through every particle of light in the room. Completion is not the end. It is the beginning remembered. The vision deepened. Alera saw the timeline of humanity stretching before her. The rise and fall of civilizations. The endless cycle of remembering and forgetting. The Brotherhood's purpose had never been to control or to rule, but to guide consciousness through the rhythm of creation and dissolution. When darkness rises, the being said, we fall silent, for silence teaches. When the world listens again, we return as light. The sarcophagus began to dissolve, its light merging with the air, with her, with everything. She felt herself dissolve into vibration, her heartbeat aligning with the pulse of the universe. In that moment, she understood that there was no separation between the builders, the stars, and humanity itself. Every atom of her being was part of the same song, the one that began before time, echoing still through stone, water, and breath. When she awoke, she was lying outside the Sphinx, the sun high above her. The chamber behind her was gone, sealed, as if it had never existed. But on her palm remained a faint, glowing mark, the spiral of the Brotherhood. The journalists and soldiers waiting nearby rushed forward, demanding answers. She gave none. Some truths, she realized, could not be told. They could only be heard in silence. Over the following weeks, as the resonance faded into background hum, humanity began to rebuild, not in structure, but in spirit. People spoke more softly. The world's noise felt less violent. Scientists studying the global energy field found anomalies they couldn't explain, a subtle increase in planetary coherence, as though Earth's heartbeat had stabilized. And somewhere, deep within the bedrock of Giza, a faint tone continued to sing, a tone that no instrument could measure, but which every living thing could feel. In her final journal entry, Alera wrote, "The last secret of the Pharaohs is not buried in the ground. It is within us. The Brotherhood's greatest work was not the pyramid. It was the human spirit capable of resonance, memory, and awakening. We are the hidden order now." The song continues, through us. As she finished writing, a breeze swept through her tent. For a moment, she heard again that deep, familiar vibration, not from the desert, but from within her own chest. She smiled, closed her notebook, and whispered to the wind, "I hear you." The air shimmered, and the sound faded into silence. Not an ending, just the rest between notes. The hidden brotherhood of the pyramids had never truly vanished. They had only been waiting for humanity to remember the sound of its own soul. The world after the resonance was quieter, not in sound, but in essence. People awoke each morning with a strange clarity, as though something within had subtly realigned. Across continents, dreams became more vivid, recurring symbols appearing to countless minds, spirals of light, pyramids adrift among stars, and a song with no lyrics, only feeling. Scientists dismissed it as collective psychology. Mystics called it remembrance. Whatever it was, it spread like a whisper on the wind, carried through sleep, through silence, through the stillness between thoughts. Humanity, unknowingly, had begun to tune itself again. Alara Voss retreated from public life. She declined interviews, refused funding, and vanished into the desert. Her disappearance only deepened the myth surrounding her. Some claimed she joined an ancient sect. Others believed she ascended. But in truth, she had gone where her journey began, to the edge of the Sahara, where the dunes met the horizon and the stars reflected upon the sands like scattered memories. There, in the hush of the eternal, she listened. At night, she would lie upon the cooling sand, her palm pressed against the earth. Beneath her hand, she felt the hum, faint, patient, infinite. It wasn't just beneath Giza anymore. It pulsed through the very crust of the planet, a low resonance beneath oceans, mountains, and cities. When she closed her eyes, she saw images, not visions, but impressions, as though the planet itself was dreaming, remembering all that had come before. The stones of old temples breathing softly, their surfaces rippling with light, ancient ruins whispering to one another through time, forgotten cities awakening in the memory of dust. The earth was alive, and it was dreaming. She began to write again, her journals filled not with theories, but with songs, words that arrived unbidden, in rhythms she did not understand. Each poem seemed to vibrate when spoken aloud, the paper trembling faintly under her hand. One night, as she read the lines beneath the starlight, her lantern flickered, and the dunes around her began to shift. The sand rippled like water, revealing beneath its surface a vast geometric pattern, spirals, lines, and circles interwoven in perfect symmetry. It stretched for miles, glowing faintly as if lit from within. The next morning, satellite images confirmed it. A colossal geoglyph, invisible for millennia, had emerged overnight. Scholars compared it to the Nazca lines, but far more precise. Its orientation aligned not with the sun, but with the precession of Sirius, the ancient star of Isis. As news spread, pilgrims began to arrive from around the world. Scientists came too, measuring magnetic fields and seismic frequencies. What they found defied logic. The ground beneath the pattern emitted a faint vibration, measurable but untraceable to any natural cause. The earth, it seemed, was indeed singing. And yet, Alara remained silent. To her, it was not a phenomenon to be studied, but a message to be heard. The pattern was not carved. It was revealed, drawn out by the resonance, as the planet remembered its own design. She realized then what the Brotherhood had meant by when the stones dream. The pyramids, the Sphinx, the monuments of forgotten ages, they were not built to honor gods, but to awaken the earth's consciousness, to remind matter itself of the harmony from which it was born. Humanity's role had always been to listen, to act as the bridge between the silent world of stone and the vast awareness of the stars. She began to travel, tracing the ancient harmonic grid that linked sacred sites across the globe, from the temples of Angkor to the ruins of Tiwanaku, from the standing stones of Avery to the submerged pyramids off Yanaguni. Everywhere she went, she found the same pulse, the same geometry hidden beneath the landscape. The Brotherhood's network was planetary, a forgotten web of resonance connecting all life. With each discovery, the song grew louder within her, guiding her toward an inevitable conclusion. In the Andes, she met a monk who had waited decades for her arrival. He spoke of a prophecy, not of apocalypse, but of remembering. When the sleepers awaken, he told her, the world will see with the eyes of stone. Beneath the monastery lay an ancient cavern lined with crystalline walls. When she entered, the crystals responded to her presence, glowing in rhythmic flashes. She sang, softly, instinctively, and the cavern answered, the tones harmonizing with her voice. It was not an echo, but a duet. The earth was listening. As her journey continued, so did the world's quiet transformation. Oceans stabilized. Storms lost their fury. Even seismic activity decreased. Some dismissed it as coincidence. Others whispered that the planet was healing. But those attuned to the hum, the growing global chorus of resonance, knew better. They formed small circles in cities and villages, meditating not to escape the world, but to synchronize with it. The Brotherhood had no temples now, no hierarchies or codes. Its new form was human consciousness itself, awakening through countless hearts. Years passed. One evening, standing at the rim of a volcanic crater in the Pacific, Ilara finally understood the message that had guided her all along. The stones were not merely dreaming. They were waiting for humanity to remember its role as their voice. When we speak, the old text had said, the heavens move. When we forget, the stars fall silent. She closed her eyes and whispered the first tone of the Brotherhood, the same vibration that had opened the chamber beneath the Sphinx. The air trembled. The crater began to glow faintly, the lava beneath pulsing in time with her heartbeat. And then she saw it, not with her eyes, but with awareness itself. The entire planet as one living organism, its continents like organs, its oceans like breath. Every stone, every tree, every atom singing the same song, the song that had birthed the universe, now echoing back through time. The human mind was never separate from this harmony. It was an instrument within it, capable of dissonance or grace. The Brotherhood's legacy was not power, but participation, the reminder that creation was ongoing and that every thought, every act, added to the cosmic melody. Ilara smiled through tears. The stars above shimmered in acknowledgement, their light flickering in rhythm with her pulse. She whispered, the stones are dreaming again. When she descended from the mountain, dawn was breaking. The world below glowed faintly with an unseen light. Cities, rivers, deserts, all vibrating with the same soft hum. Humanity was still unaware of the magnitude of what had begun, yet something deep within every person stirred. Dreams of ancient temples, songs without words, the memory of unity. In her final transmission, broadcast to no one and everyone, Ilara spoke quietly into the desert wind. When the stones dream, we remember who we are. We are not separate from the earth, nor from the stars. The song that began in silence has never ceased. It merely waits for us to listen again. Then the signal ended. The dunes sighed, and the world, for a long and beautiful moment, simply listened. The memory beneath the sky the world had grown strangely quiet, as though the very air was waiting. From the silent deserts of Egypt to the frozen plains of Siberia, an invisible pulse seemed to thread through the planet. Gentle but insistent, a rhythm that could no longer be ignored. Humanity, once deafened by its own noise, began to hear something beyond machines and markets, a hum that resonated beneath every heartbeat, beneath the rush of wind and the crash of waves. It was the same frequency the ancients had once known, the same tone the Brotherhood had guarded for centuries, the song of the living earth. In the years after Alera's disappearance, the world's attention shifted. Nations obsessed with conquest and wealth turned inward, seeking balance rather than dominance. The old hierarchies began to dissolve, their roots loosening in the soil of a changing consciousness. People spoke more softly, listened longer, and dreamed in ways they couldn't explain. The stars above seemed brighter, the night sky more alive, as if it too had been waiting for this moment of remembering. In the archives of the Cairo Museum, a young researcher named Rafik discovered something extraordinary. Hidden inside a forgotten crate, sealed since the 1920s, he found fragments of a copper scroll etched with glyphs unlike any known script. At first, they appeared indecipherable. But under ultraviolet light, faint geometric patterns emerged between the lines, spirals, lines, and frequencies rendered as symbols. It was not writing. It was notation, a song carved in metal. The fragments resonated faintly when touched, producing a tone just at the edge of human hearing. Rafik knew instantly what it was, a remnant of the Brotherhood's lost codex. News of the find reached the few who still followed Alera's work. Her old assistant, Nadia, traveled from Lisbon to Cairo to see it for herself. The moment she touched the scroll, the museum's glass cases began to tremble, their contents vibrating in sympathy. The curator thought it was an earthquake, but Nadia understood. The stones were responding again. She realized the message was not in the glyphs alone, but in the act of resonance itself. The scroll was a tuning fork for the world's forgotten memory. That night, as a sandstorm gathered outside, Nadia unrolled the fragments on the museum floor. She placed a recording device nearby, took a deep breath, and began to hum the tone she had once heard in the hidden chamber of the Sphinx. The storm outside paused, not stopped, but suspended, as if time itself was holding its breath. The walls of the museum glowed faintly, and the shadowed artifacts, statues, pottery, shards of bone, shimmered in unison. She saw, just for an instant, what Alera had seen in her visions, the earth dreaming, the stones remembering their origins. In that vision, the sky itself became translucent. Constellations rearranged into geometric patterns, forming a vast lattice that mirrored the grid of sacred sites below. The stars were not random. They were markers, a celestial map for those who could listen. The Brotherhood had always known this. The pyramids were not tombs nor monuments, but resonant amplifiers, part of a vast planetary instrument designed to connect heaven and earth through vibration. Each star was a note, each pyramid a chord, and humanity itself the bridge that completed the song. When Nadia awoke, the scroll's glow had faded, but something within her had changed. She felt lighter, as though some hidden weight had lifted from her mind. She understood now that the Brotherhood's purpose had never been control or secrecy. It was protection, not of power, but of memory. The ancients had known that civilization would one day lose itself in noise, forget its origins, and mistake silence for absence. Their hidden network was not meant to be worshipped, but rediscovered when humanity was ready to hear again. She gathered what remained of the scroll and left Cairo before dawn. Her path led her to the high plateau of Giza, where the morning light spilled across the limestone blocks like golden water. Standing before the Great Pyramid, she felt the resonance again, steady, ancient, alive. She placed her hand upon the stone and whispered the old tone, the same one that had once opened the chamber. The pyramid responded. A faint vibration rippled through the ground, spreading outward in perfect concentric circles. The sands shimmered, revealing glimpses of hidden structures below. Smaller pyramids, perfectly aligned, their existence erased from every record. The grid extended far beyond the plateau, stretching toward the desert's horizon like a sleeping constellation. For a moment, the sky itself changed. A faint aurora unfurled above the pyramids, not of color, but of light structured like geometry, interlocking patterns that danced with impossible precision. Nadia understood, then, that she was not witnessing magic, but memory. The earth was recalling its design, the harmony that once bound all life. Every stone, every atom was part of a living archive. The Brotherhood's greatest secret had never been buried beneath the sand. It had always been beneath the sky. As she gazed upward, a realization struck her, one that filled her with awe and quiet dread. The harmony was not unique to Earth. The same resonant geometry existed elsewhere, scattered across the cosmos. The Brotherhood's symbol, once dismissed as esoteric art, was not merely human. It was universal. The ancients had not built the pyramids in imitation of the stars. They had built them in conversation with them. Nadia smiled through tears as she whispered Alara's final words. The stones are dreaming again. Around her, the desert shimmered like an ocean of light, each grain of sand reflecting the stars above. The hum deepened, rising to a tone that seemed to pierce both earth and heaven. She felt no fear, only belonging. When the light faded, she was gone. Only the faint outline of her footprints remained in the sand, leading toward the pyramid's shadow. Those who searched later found the copper scroll resting at the base of the monument, warm to the touch and humming softly. The resonance it carried would continue to echo through the generations, awakening those who dared to listen. In the years that followed, scholars and mystics alike spoke of the age of remembering. The old temples began to vibrate faintly again. Rivers changed course, following invisible patterns once mapped by the Brotherhood. The auroras returned to skies far from the poles, painting ancient symbols across the night. Humanity, it seemed, was being rewritten, not by technology or conquest, but by harmony. And one night, under the endless canopy of stars, a child somewhere in the world looked up, hearing for the first time that hidden tone within the wind. She smiled, for it sounded like her own heartbeat. Far above, in the constellation of Orion, a new light shimmered into being, faint, steady, alive. The heavens had answered. The earth exhaled, and the song began again.